Welcome back to Witch on the Holy Night. Starting right back from where we left off, Alco gave us the greatest lesson known to man, a lesson that I believe we should all learn. And let's continue on to the title of this game, Witch on the Holy Night 2. I don't know if it's the last chapter or not. It's kind of sad. My headphones are broken, so right now I'm recording with no headphones, but I can still hear the audio from my TV, so I hope there's no echo. I hope everything goes right. There's no way this episode could end badly. From the last episode was amazing. That was literally my favorite episode. Let's see if this one can top that. I'm kind of scared. I'm not scared for it to end. I'm just scared for me to record this, and it's not what it should be. Like, this is the finale, which on the Holy Night Part 2. Let's start, man. Let's start. I'm excited. And usually when I'm talking, I can hear myself because I have my headphones. It's like the audio thing. Cobwebs. The golden wolf's ears pointed, twitching in response to the sounds around it. Its meal finished, it curled up into a ball in anticipation of nap time, and yawned, half from boredom. The old abandoned classroom, had fulfilled its purpose many moons ago. For a month, the wolf had spent his time resting on the top of a heap of disheveled desks. His name was Beowulf. He was a purebred werewolf, named after the sun at his birthplace, and a hero of legend upon leaving there. It goes without saying he was not from this country. He came from a land deep within the European wilderness, surrounded by mountains and forest. His homeland was a realm no human could ever set foot in. In their isolated world forgotten by time, a diminishing race of werewolves lived in peace. This was where Beowulf first appeared. In a cave on the outskirts of their village, the werewolves found a child bearing the same golden coat as their ancestors. The child was sleeping soundly, as if his natural habitat. The village welcomed their new member with open arms. 2,000 years of advancing civilization had been cruel to them. As the forest was destroyed, valleys unearthed, and waters polluted, the werewolf... Stop. I was trying to go without talking about the music, but then every time, birth rate dwindled. They were now facing one birth a decade. The child's golden coat, deviating from a typical gray or white and shared only by their ancestors, who were treated as gods, felt like a sign their prayers had been answered. A bloodline in entropy. The werewolves were forced to embrace change. This radiant child, at least temporarily, made them forget about their troubles. Alas, as time passed, their hopes turned to disappointment. The golden wolf was not their salvation. For some reason, Beowulf, the ray of golden sun, remained a child. Decades passed and he still had not grown. Forever young, immortal, cursed. He searched the village for his birth mother, but to no avail. He searched the village for someone who understood his plight, but to no avail. Over hundreds of years, he came to realize something. He was different. Very different. Neither male nor female. Neither strong nor weak. Ignorant of life and death, joy and fear. That thing's a spirit, born of nature. Might look like us werewolves, but don't let that fool you. But the child himself needed not conjecture to know his own true nature. He was perfect, and therefore he was alone. To the golden wolf, the world was too small. That's why, indeed, that was the very reason. He wanted to know what life was. He wanted to know loss. If he was all-powerful, he wanted to know the mystery behind his all-powerfulness. Because as it was, his existence was meaningless. The golden wolf was at a loss, as were the werewolves around him. They revered him, but at the same time wanted nothing to do with him. Beowulf moved back to the cave he was discovered in, and resigned himself to a life of seclusion.
太陽のルー？ルーガルじゃなくて？そりゃ面白い。偶然にしちゃできすぎだ。
And then one day, a quirky mage visited the village. I forgot how she said the name right. Lu, like that?
またガタガタとうるさい。トウコさんはあれだよね。派手好きなくせに豆だよね。
From his place on the top of the rubble, Bale peered into the hallway. He thought his fussy master was busy dealing with Misaki City's ley lines, but she was engrossed in making traps. 1 month passed since they made the dilapidated building their makeshift workshop. Creating a new trap for intruders became a daily pursuit of Toko's.
安全を用意しておくなんて、他の生き物は大変だ。
Man, I really hope there is no echo. I'm gonna be so sad. Like my mic is so far from my TV. I got the TV turned down to let me turn it down just a tad bit more. I could survive, man. I don't need the audio to be perfect for me. I need it to be perfect for you guys. You know, I could always rewatch this, right? So it's like, please. Having been like this since birth, knowing neither infancy nor dotage, he thought differently than others. See, the thing is also, it is 2 different audio tracks. No, that wouldn't work because the audio, whatever. It's all for me. Don't worry about that. It should be fine, please. For he was perfect from the day he was born, never declining, never improving. As such, he had no comprehension of weakness. Childlike, fickle, and without morals, he had no concept of good and bad as either a human or a wolf. A beautiful creature disconnected from the world around him, he was on top of all other creatures. With one exception, his master, Toko Aozaki. She showed him a sparkling, delicious world, and above all, he found her scent refreshing. To him, the world was divided into what was cool and what was not. Your preference and leisure pursuits were of no consequence to him, and he never took gender into account. The only thing that mattered to him was whether a person's life was logical and therefore cool. Toko Aozaki had her faults, but she smelled good.
Beo, 昼食は済ませたか?
Bale's master entered the classroom, presumably done with her traps for the day.
夜が本番だ。それまであまり羽目を外すなよ。
Sometimes, like now, she would nag him, but on the whole, his master was pleased. In reality, the contract binding her to him was not particularly powerful. If he wanted to, he could tear her to pieces at any time. No human could restrain him. However, he had no intention of killing Toko in exchange for his freedom. And there was a reason for this. In order to move about freely in human society, he needed someone like her. As long as she did not offend him, he had no reason to rock the boat. However,
やっと本番か。待たせすぎだよ、トウコさん。
the promise she had made him in his cave and the reality of their situation had begun to come apart as it seems.
来い。
Or at the-
最高の神秘と戦わせてやる。
He was complaint up until now. Really? That's how you compliant. My bad. Compliant. There you go. Come on, guys. It's the last episode, possibly. Like, you don't think I could read by now? You don't think I picked up a few skills? Like, come on. Y'all doubting me for no reason. But his patience was wearing thin. The fight with the newest magician last night was an enormous letdown.
そう言うな。私も昨日は拍子抜けだったんだから。いいけどね。実はあの子、使わないんじゃなくて、使えないだけじゃないの?
His master's expression turned serious. Not in agreement at the wolf's question, though. For she had already asked herself the same and many other similar questions.
いや、使うぐらいなら死んだ方がマシ。 なのかもね。そんなバカなことがあるの？使わないと死んじゃう状態だったんだよ。だからそんなバカな考えが成立するぐらい。
That it must be too terrifying to use, Toko finished in her head. She stopped short of voicing it and chuckled at her emotional outburst.
どれほどのものか想像がつかないのは確かだ。だがまあ根本は変わらないさ。魔法がどのような奇跡神秘の類であれ、魔術師である以上、青子に勝ち目はない。
With those words, Bale's master walked out of the room, emphasizing that his role in all of this was to face Alco only at that very moment.
魔法ね。
The bored look in his eyes shifted. He recalled the taste of that girl, his long tongue sliding over his chainsaw-like bangs. Make no mistake, he would finish his meal. He was the oldest werewolf, the golden god of the forest. For as long as he could remember, no, from the moment he appeared, he had been the most powerful creature of all. All man-made mystics were trash before him. Magecraft was laughable and mystic artificial miracles, which even surpassed that, were superfluous, wow, I can't say words, futile. Their very existence was an insult to him.
もちろん、そういう契約だし、ちゃんと平らげはするけれど。
That was the extent of their pact. Once he had dealt with the so-called true magic, he was free. His eyes burned with the wolf inside of him. His fang maw twisted into a sadistic, beastly grin. Which on the holy night, too. It was just past 7 p.m. Misaki High School's old building stood silently. While light from the city reached the area, the forests and mountains kept the area hushed. Nothing unusual. During winter vacation, the old building, now still covered in yesterday's snow, was rarely used. Without signs of life, such unused structures were mere monuments of what once was, nothing more. You know what's interesting? When I stuttered there, bro, I was thinking about how well I've been reading without having the headphones in. And then as soon as I think about that, I start stuttering. That's kind of crazy. Focus. The old building, the old school building, would remain that way until the start of the new semester. Behind it, the vast forest grew darker by the minute. Oh my God, I forgot to delete some videos. I got like 30 gigabytes of storage. Give me a second. If the building had died in just under 2 weeks of vacation, what had become of the forest over the years? The wall of overgrown trees filtered out the noise of the city and most of the moonlight. An otherworldly realm had taken root, not even 2 miles away from town. Piercing the cold night air, footsteps crunched through the powdery snow. Girls, yes. The witches on the holy night. I suck.
私らがやってきたことなんてとっくにバレてるわ。
I was about to ask why she's wearing her school uniform, but her other clothes was probably, very torn through.
隠れても意味はないし、何より敵のアジトに入ってどうするのよ。盗みが目的じゃないでしょ、今回は。後ろから切りつけるのは。
Why am I fumbling?
後ろから切りつけるの。それができれば苦労はないんだけどね。まあ、忍者の真似事は私というかアリスの芸風じゃないでしょ。そもそもやる気満々なのはこっちもあっちも同じってこと。
The sound of their footsteps stopped in unison. The old, forgotten Misaki High School building stood before them. What used to be a schoolyard was now a barren snowscape. Reclaimed by the forest, the building looked like a shell of its former self. The surrounding trees resembled standing mourners at a funeral. Mourners.
せっかちなお嬢さん方だ。タイムリミットまであと4時間はあるというのに。
Alone in the middle of the white altar was alone. I'm sorry. Scared? I'm sorry, I can't read. Red mage. Why would it be scared though? Is it the same word? Yo, honestly, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. Yeah, it's definitely Sunday, 3 o'clock in the morning, which makes sense because I've been up all day, working, being a good citizen, blue collar, just working my. As she came out of the forest, Alko lowered herself slightly, scowling at her distant target. Next to her, Alice stood motionless. The bare branches of the trees cast long, thorny shadows. Oh, and English isn't my first language, by the way. Alko was reminded of Sleeping Beauty, except this mage wasn't nearly as pleasant as the princess in there. Not to mention, she wasn't sleeping, and there was no prince. Regardless, this princess came out of her schoolhouse castle to greet her challengers.
その体で無理をして。あなたのそういうところ、姉としてどうかと思うわ、青子。
Toko grinned faintly. Alko fought back the urge to respond. Meanwhile, Alice stood in silence, uninterested in sibling rivalry. Toko stood about 100 feet away. With their senses sharpened through magecraft and the silence of the forest, they could hear each other perfectly. The golden wolf was nowhere to be seen. Toko faced the two girls alone. Alice's black overcoat and winter hat were typical items of clothing for a mage battle. A few paces in front of her was Alko, whose combat garb was comparatively out of place, a Masaki High School uniform. She had asked Alice to bring a change of clothes for her, but there must have been some misunderstanding. Though it was a trivial miscommunication, Toko seemed to think it had some special meaning.
ところで、始める前に一ついいかな。気になって仕方がないし、この先機会もないだろうから聞くんだけど、あなたの戦闘服ってそれなの？青子。
Toko spoke clearly, despite the distance. Was able to communicate her deep-seated scorn without trouble. Akko would rather attack than engage in small talk, but she decided to take the bait.
そんなわけないでしょ。今までこういう機会が多かっただけよ。数えるなら今日を含めて4回しかないわ。私はまだ現役だからそれも悪くはないかもしれないけど、いつか流行るでしょ、こういうのも。
Akko was sure to emphasize her words. For a split second, Toko's eyes narrowed.
呆れたな。相変わらずのローセンスだ。
それはどうも。人形を実の妹に見立てる異常者にそう言われるなら、一周回って安心よ。
With that, the two fell silent and glared at each other. Their bloodlust cut through the thick, cold air like a knife. While the two of them sized each other up, Alice surveyed the area around Toko. There was no indication anyone or anything was lying in wait near her. Perhaps she should see if the werewolf was still in the old school building. Maybe Toko didn't feel that Alko and Alice were much of a threat in their injured state. Or was she really not expecting a counterattack so early, so the wolf wasn't ready? After some contemplation, Alice surmised it was the former. She was really going to fight alone. Her arsenal comprised of her mystic eyes and rune magecraft. That was more than enough to deal with Alko and Alice in their current state. Alice, all I need is one shot. Alko signaled Alice behind her with a movement of her finger. Alice had no objections. The original plan was for her to keep the werewolf busy. With the mirror as backup, Alko was hoping to catch Toko off guard. They had a few other cards up their sleeve, but the fact remained that as mages, their attacks wouldn't affect the werewolf. So he decided to ignore it and focus on taking out Toko. Not the best strategy, but it was all the two could come up with. But they had been thrown a curveball. Toko had the upper hand, so she was reluctant to use the beast. Akko wasn't about to let this opportunity go to waste. By distracting her with sibling banter, she would settle things before the werewolf even showed up.
じゃあ今度はこっちの番ね。どう？結界の張り直しは進んでる？
まさか昨日の今日よ。まだ手をつけてもいない。せいてはことを仕損じる。だいたい私の目的は霊脈の奥にあるもので、結界そのものじゃない。張り直しは予定にないさ。まあ土地を暴くなんて面倒な真似をするより、お前を暴いた方が早いのかもしれない
が。やっぱりそれが目的だったのね。ならなおのこと、あんたを魔法使いにするわけにはいかないわ。
Akko's blue eyes burned brightly with a fiery fighting spirit. Even though her sister was ready to pounce, Toko remained motionless, but for her mouth, which twisted into a smirk.
確かにまだ執着はあるね。私には移植されなかった魔術刻印と青崎の伝える魔法の正体。だがもういいよ。惜しくはあるが、到達すればどちらも自分で用意できる。それとも今ここで私のために魔法の正体を見せてくれるのかい、青子。
Toko's words came out flatly, but her eyes mocked her sister. It was true, however, that if Akko wanted to defeat Toko, her best chance would be to use this mysterious true magic. The only problem was that she couldn't. If she could, she would use it to avoid being mauled last night. Akko Aozaki couldn't use true magic. Toko believed she needed to fulfill some kind of condition. The protection their grandfather placed on the formula was to prohibit miracles from being easily realized. However, that wasn't because he was concerned about the human world. It was no exaggeration to say he'd felt nothing if magic leveled the entire city. The truth was, true magic never had any conditions. Akko was being held back by trauma. These 5 privileges, the only powers of their kind, were bounded by cognitive seals. That's why Toko looked down on her naive little sister. So weak, a body incapable of handling magic could be cut down with a mere sword. Akko knew better than anyone else, which is why she couldn't forgive her sister's ridicule. Just try using true magic, huh? A pathetic taunt. If that was how she wanted to play, then so be it.
お望みとあらばね。
With a burst of pure rage, Akko made her move. Her colorless shoes sped across the untainted snowfield. Like a stone skipping across water, as Akko charged forward, she disappeared. Only her footprints advanced, like bullet holes in the snow. Toko held her ground. Concealment was entire elementary magecraft. More than likely, the power came from one of Alice's trinkets. It was a simple yet effective countermeasure to Mystic Eyes. Toko's Mystic Eyes used the lock property to bind an opponent. It did not have the Logos property to discern truth through an illusion. Once a magecraft's workings were revealed, its weakness was exposed. In a mere 4 seconds, her opponent has closed 10 yards and was still speeding up. It appeared that she had given up on the mage battle and was going to move in for melee. The other girl, Alice Koenji, didn't take a single step.
アリスからご筆ももらっているのでしょうけど、反省なさい、青子。切り札というものは あくまで自己の力によるものを言うの。
Sneering, Toko raised her left arm, holding it out in front of her threateningly. 10 more yards. Unfortunately, her footprints gave away her position. Toko began engraving a rune into the air. Before she could finish, Alko's footsteps stop. Jeez. It's okay. We'll get there. I'm trying to be dramatic and it's not helping. It's making it work. Okay. She was still too far for close combat. What a strange place to end her attack. No, wait. Could she really stop so suddenly at that speed? Yeah! Yes! Alko Aozaki with the double, triple jumps. Let's go. Toko made a snap decision. She quickly raised her outstretched arm toward the sky as a salute in the moon. Oh my god. Flames tore through the air. You see that? Those are feathers. The rune carved into the body above her, bathing it into a pillar of flames. No internal resistance spell could help. Rather than simply burning their target, the runes wrapped around them and wreath of flame. There we go. Oh my god, is that someone's hand? The assailant screamed, falling into the snow-covered ground. In agony, she extended a burning hand from the hellish fire, as if begging for mercy. It was stuff out of nightmares. The snow melted as the fire burned the attacker alive. Chirp, chirp. The movement was far too theatrical to be Alko. Toko had already turned her gaze to Alice. She hadn't been watching the burning corpse at all. Toko knew it wasn't Alko from the moment the body fell to the ground. Irritated, Toko glared at Alice. While Alko had vanished into thin air, she hadn't moved at all. Blue energy traced the circle where she stood. It was a force to fourth. A 4-bar grand magecraft mobilizing her magic crest. Toko had a single action runes. No, she hadn't mastered anything above 2 bars to begin with. This torrent of energy was too much to handle. The rune formed in the magic circle. Awazu, the rune of withdrawal, was evoked, and Alko's concealment was undone, allowing Toko to utilize her mystic eyes. Within her open pupil, the infinitely mirrored eyes captured their target in an endless hell. Sharingan! But the mage's sight was literally split in two. The space in front of Alko distorted, obscuring her like an icy mist. If Toko's eyes was like opposing mirrors, then this was like sticking a one-way mirror at a triangulation point. With her vision split in two, she couldn't lock on Alko.
御水の鏡の効果よ、トウコさん。青子は鏡の Y 字路の奥にいる。一本道から見ているあなたに中心は見渡せない。
Alice explained without concern. Due to the herb Toko made Alice swallow, she was still unable to use her own magecraft. However, she could use ploys already in motion without using magical energy, such as the Manch's mirror and the aimless little blue bird. Finally, the magic bullet was loaded. Let him know. Oh my, the art is insane. Raising her right arm to reveal luminescent crest, Alko took aim at her target 100 feet ahead. The music, magical energy coursed through her gun barrel arm. From the moment she had received Alice's invisibility, Alko had begun chanting her magecraft. It took Toko a few seconds to notice. Alko produced more spins in an awakened magic circuits than she had ever done before. She readied not snap nor draw. Instead, she advanced past her third process, a compression of magical energy, magic blow. If she fired the blue ether that gathered before her, it would fly with force of 10 tons. Using her magic crest to multiply the energy and machine gun her target, it was enough power to demolish even the old building behind her. Alko stared intensely at her sister, ready to fire. Toko had no time to counterattack or even speed to evade. The fact that she didn't move implied she knew better than anyone. Acceptance filled her eyes, not fear. Alko didn't hesitate, squeezing the trigger on her right hand. Just like that, we at the finale, my boys. Game over. The last word came out like a scream. Under the impact of ether, the surrounding snow melted and flew around. Toko was engulfed in dirt. No way she could survive Alko's magical bullet. It contained every bit of Alko's magical energy she could muster. Viewing the chaos, Alko confirmed her victory, and yet she somehow felt bitter. But then, choosing to deal with the torrent of magical energy she swallowed up later, Toko tweeted at Alko's childishness. Her disappointment was deep, so deep, it bordered on despair.
学ぶにしては遅すぎたが、まあ聞いておけ青子。切り札というものは先に出した方の負けなんだよ。
Her voice, cold and aloof, she was completely unscathed. The mage stood in the snowfield, not a single speck of dirt on her overcoat. Just before the bullet reached Toko, she deflated it with magical energy at the same level. Alko could only stare at the scene before her. The negation of her magecraft hadn't shocked her, though. Leaf-like objects floated behind her sister. Alko stared like she was living a nightmare. Countless magic crests poured out of Toko's back. It all happened in an instant. Jeez. The magical bullet approaching like a tsunami. Toko lightly snapped her fingers, causing a stream of letters to rush out from behind her. Text became art, golden flowers bloomed. There must have been hundreds. All sorts of magecraft from even beyond Western Europe. The kind normally craved into flesh of a mage. The kind Toko Aozaki shouldn't possess. The kind only followers of those schools should know. Blossoming magic crest, brighter than the moon. Inscribed in the air, they formed a totem pole, a guardian beast, to protect Toko.
To, まあこういうわけだ。ベオだけに頼ってはいないことがよくわかったろ。
Toko's expression was steely. Victory was in her grasp, and there was no room to rest on her laurels.
姿を隠したのは鏡の応用か。探知や隔離だけでなく援護まで行えるとはね。三大のプロイには含まれないものの、汎用性の面で言えばあれも破格のプロイだな。持ち上げるじゃない。何？騙された負け惜しみ？いや、ただの自画自賛だよ。何しろ今のバージョンは私とマインスターの合作だ。趣味に興じすぎてあれこれと機能を足してしまったと今更ながら悔いているところさ。その後、青子に見せかけて私に向かってきたのは例のコマドリ。それに気を取られている間の大規模な魔術の発動。私の魔眼はアリスが防ぎ、青子は攻撃だけに専念する。組み立ては悪くはない。よく。
Toko recounted their strategy, sharing her impressions as she went. Aoko could not take her eyes off Toko's blooming magic crest. Only Alice was paying close attention to Toko's words.
しかしそれもここまでだ。
I'm sorry, I had to unplug my controller and I just clicked buttons on accident. Oh my god.
しかしそれもここまでだ。惜しいな青子。わずか2年であれだけの魔術を使えるのなら、あと数年もすれば一流の車種になっていただろうに。
Toko snapped her fingers again. The floating crest began to glow more brightly.
アリス、あれは何？
Aoko whispered to Alice, standing next to her as if she held her hand. She could not risk turning around. The second she took her eye off Toko, the fight would be over.
見ての通り、魔術刻印よ。信じられないけど。
Alice's voice filled with shock and discomfort. Aoko shared Alice's sentiment. Magic crests were passed down through a family line and took unique forms. At heart, they were merely personalized inscriptions, and technically no different from grimoires. However, the reality was far different. Magecraft had no set form. Without a set shape, the ability to recreate mystics was itself flawed. To craft it into a form required immeasurable investment of time and devotion. Magic Crest was crystallization of a family's desires and ambitions and proof of a successor's lineage. Crest had no effect on their own, but they were the ultimate symbol of a family. If no mage was willing to imbue themselves with the crest or lacked the resolve to merge with it, the crest's meaning was lost. That was the key difference between a crest and a mere spellbook. Crests could not be shared, and imitating them was pointless. It only stood to reason then that even if the crest manifested behind Toko belonged to someone else, only the original owner could benefit from them.
でも確かに私の魔弾はあの刻印からの魔術で弾かれた。あれはもしかすると。
Searching for answers, Ako squinted her eyes as she glared at Toko. She knew that copying a crest had no purpose. Only the original inheritor could evoke one. There was only one possible conclusion.
そう。肌に刻まず中空に浮かべてるのはそういうこと。
Ako spat a curse at her sister. Toko nodded, pleased at her enemy's quick wit.
ああ、この体には合わないのでな。私の背後の空間に固定している。本当はね、お前たちのように肉に刻んだ方がいいんだ。魔術の起動が一動作で済むんだから。だが実際に使用するのならこうするしかない。起動までの手順は一つ増えるが、マイナスばかりでもない。所詮は人事なんでね。痛みは全く感じない。
And it seemed neither physically nor mentally. Ako knew her sister was inhuman, but she never thought she'd go this far.
合うわけないじゃない。他人の魔術刻印を剥がしてるんだから、血筋の称号からして馴染むはずがないわ。で、奪われた連中は死ぬこともできず、今もどこかに生かされているわけだ。刻印の持ち主が死んだら起動すらできないものね、それ。
トウコさん、あなた。
非難される覚えはないんだが、私はかかる火の粉を払っただけだよ。向こうから戦いを挑んできたんだから、戦利品ぐらいは用意してもらわないと。まあ、中にはつまらない単語を口にしたバカ者もいるが、それはそれだ。むしろ優しいと思うけどね。 私を殺しに来た連中をわざわざ生かしてあげてるんだから。その魔術師たちがちゃんと人間の形をしてることを祈るわ。肉親として。お前ね、私を何だと思ってるんだ。 脳だけ保存とか面倒だから100人ひとまとめにした肉塊とか、そんな手抜きなんぞするものか。きちんとカフェを用意して食事も娯楽も睡眠も自由に提供してるんだぞ。中には一生ここで暮らしたいなんて騒ぎ立てるバカもいるぐらいだ。
Toko's words were hardly believable, but it was clear her crests weren't copies. Alice's scowl deepened. What Toko had described was no discernible benefit in her mind. Why had she gone to the trouble of stealing other mages' crests? It would have been more efficient to break down the crests into components and make replicas. For a skilled puppet master like Toko, she could have made a much more powerful puppet with those crests. It would have made a pawn loyal to her every command at that, much more useful than any enslaved mage.
なんでそんなことを。
そういう人なのよ、姉貴は。これで行くと決めたらそれしか目に入らない人なの。家庭より結果の人なの。ある日の話よ。テレビでピザの CM をやっててさ、私たちは唐突にあのデブ食を食べたくなった。でも悲しいかな。一般家庭であるうちにあったのはサラミだけ。うちの実家、山奥にあるの知ってるでしょ。町まで行くのに1時間はかかる。中学1年だった私は我慢できなくて町まで行ったけど、ピザ屋なんか一軒もなくてとぼとぼ帰ったの。
It was the tragedy of living in the countryside. Misaki, which had only recently gotten a conveyor belt sushi restaurant, would not see a pizzeria for another 2 years.
なのに骨折り損で家に帰ったら、姉貴のやつ「おかえり」とか手を振ってピザ食べてやがったのよ。おせんべいを下地にしてみたわとか言って、外見たら鳥3羽と牛1頭丸々消えてて、ああこの女には10日交換とか手間とかお金の問題とかそういうの一切頭にないんだって思い知らされたわ。
Alice agreed. That was pretty crazy.
そんな無茶なやつだからガンド打ちで目に見える傷跡を出そうなんて平気で考えるのよね。あんなのゲマトリア一節分の栄唱で同じ効果を出せるのに、あくまで呪術にこだわるから空も飛べない人形になるのよ、バカ兄貴。
The thought of a puppet doppelganger made her blood boil. It was clear to Alko that Toko had done it on purpose to annoy her. Toko furrowed her brow at Alko's verbal assault. She had been stoic up until now, but speaking rudely about her prized puppet was crossing the line.
その人形に追い詰められたのはお前だったね。それとゲマトリアはカバラの秘術だ。私はルーン専門だからお前のように広く浅く知識を広める気はないよ。まあもっともこの刻印の所有者の一人からケルトの結界をお世話りはしたがね。
Toko looked to the crest over her left shoulder. Its shine was ever radiant, proving that its magecraft was active.
これは城で祖父を封じ込めるのに使っていてね。犯人犯用のドルイド層を閉じ込めたとまではいかないが、そうだな。私では郵便ポストぐらいの大きさが限界か。ほら、昔お前が壊した赤いポスト、ちょうどあれぐらいの可愛い鳥小屋だよ。人間一人分をしまうには窮屈だろうが、祖父は肉体というより霊体に近い。見ようによってはそっちの方がふさわしいかもしれないね。
Toko stifled a sinister laugh, her explanation chilling. Her cold veneer seemed to slip slightly when it came to her grandfather, her smile betraying the long festering hatred she still clung
そ
to.
ういったわけでね、先の青子の魔術を防いだので
この刻印もしばらくは使用不能なんだ。今のが本当の魔法だったなら、わずか3行の刻印では打ち消せなかっただろうに。青子、お前は僅差で負けたんだ。恥じることはないよ。じゃあ、そろそろ終わりにしよう。抵抗をするのは自由だが、ベオ相手にそれは辛いぞ。
Toko snapped her fingers one more time. The golden werewolf was hiding in the old school building. The signal to him echoed eerily through the surrounding woods. Before the echo stopped, Alco shouted back at Alice.
行ってアリス。
The order sounded like a reprimand, but Alice silently obeyed. Without hesitation, she left Alco behind to handle Toko and made for the forest. If defeat was inevitable, it would be pointless for them both to die. If one of them could survive, there could be around 3. That's why Alco decided to be the sacrificial pawn.
トウコ自身の切り札も分かったし、アリスが本調子になれば勝てない相手じゃないものね。
Alco muttered bitterly to herself as Alice's feet crunched through the snow. Instead of cursing her own death, she cursed the fact that she would not see Alice defeat Toko. For what else there was, or was there to this curse except this? Alice disappeared into the forest. Feeling her fellow mage's presence fade, Alco continued to glare at her sister.
いつまでじらす気？私、待たされるのは好きじゃないんだけど。
Speaking of waiting, the werewolf Toko had called was nowhere to be seen. It should not have taken more than a few seconds to come flying out of the school
そう
building.
せくな。今赤ずきんを追っているところだ。黒帽子の彼女をそう例えるのはやや無理があるがね。
Her tone reeked of irony. The words traveled aimlessly across the schoolyard like a rambling announcement. Alco stood frozen and dumbfounded. Everything Toko was saying seemed so far away from reality. Alco was done with being fooled, so she turned around. The moonlight shining off the fallen snow allowed her to see far into the forest. From the white darkness, a lone boy came into view, walking toward her. What the fuck? He could not have been any taller than Alco's chest, but he carried Alice over his shoulder with ease. As if she was nothing, he tossed her body upward. She arced through the air for several feet before dropping headfirst before Alco's eyes. Her neck would snap on impact. What the Even though she was not wiser too, Alco reached out and caught her. Alice's light body weighed heavy as she fell into Alco's arms. The stitches on her wounds tore, dyeing Alco's crimson arms crimson. Alco gritted her teeth, fighting the pain that shot through her body and the sensation of warm blood.
アリス、無事。
Alice did not respond, but Alco could see she was at least conscious. The werewolf must have abandoned her right after she ran into the woods. Alice bled heavily from where the werewolf tore her abdomen open last night, just like she had done, or he had done Alco.
森に潜ませていたとはね。
Cursing her own carelessness, she gently lay Alice's body down. She set her sights on the blonde-haired boy, her new target.
つまり、あれよね。甘く見ていたふりで、初めから余裕なかったんだ。
Even in the face of Alco's rage, he did not stop smirking. What? No, he is. Oh God, this dude is a little boy. He stared back at the girl's gleaming eyes, twinkling. Wow, I read that entirely incorrect, but whatever. Twinkling with excitement at the brutality to come. This dude is the one murking. Okay. The blonde hair and green eyes she saw last night, and his effeminate features now seemed ethereal, like he had changed into a being from another planet.
Beo, 今日は食っていいぞ。
Toko's voice reached from afar. The boy's grin broadened. Nobody could have accepted what came next. Alko rushed headfirst at the boy. Faster than the robin's decoy, she sped, blood dripping from both arms. Toko watched wide-eyed at the spectacle. Alice could only look on with vacant eyes as she laid helplessly on the ground. The werewolf boy was caught off guard by the prey becoming the predator. Alko crossed the 20-foot gap in a second before planting a foot in the snow. It arrested her momentum and pivoted her body at the top, like a top. Even if he instantly understood what was coming, the boy wouldn't be able to dodge in time. Using the momentum from her sprint, she pushed her leg into the ground and sprang up. With deadly timing, her roundhouse kick swung in a wide arc toward the boy's neck, sending an explosion of force to his brainstem. And he ate that! What the Hey, tell me this don't look like her JB in Melty Blood. That's all I'm gonna say. It was an expert display of martial arts, strengthened by magical energy. She'd gotten the hang of close combat while fighting Toko's puppets. The violent kick was powerful enough to shatter a tree trunk. The boy did not move. What the fuck? Alko's right shin firmly stopped. I thought he would... Man, for a second I was like, okay, he's strong, of course, like physically, but also I thought he was just gonna be like super strong against magic. This dude literally ate a kick that could take down a tree. Got you. A shockwave rippled through his neck. It was the same feedback Alko had felt when she destroyed the puppet. Even if he wasn't defeated, she had to have severely damaged his spine. As she looked at him to confirm her kill, the boy simply stared back at her, not even bothering to twitch an eyebrow.
お姉さんの右足は確か噛み切った方だ。それで首を狙ったのはすごいよね。女の人は本能的に自分の体をかばうものだって瞳子さんは言ってたのに。けど残念。せっかくの勇気も無駄でした。僕の体毛の質はこの姿でも変わらない。産毛だけでもお姉さんの蹴りを受け止めることはできる。
The only one hurt between the two was Alko. The leg had lodged in his neck was totally numb, like it had been clean chopped off with a hatchet.
少しだけ迷いがあったな。くっつけたばっかりの足だからかばったでしょ。人間が僕の相手をするならそんなこと気にしちゃいけないのに。でも。
The boy smiled, basking in Alko's shock and awe. She could not free her leg. No doubt, as soon as she regained her footing, he would treat her stomach open.
どっちにしろミンチだから気にしても仕方がないよね。ほら、もったいない。せっかく治ったばかりなのに。
Alko was not sure, but it felt like he had sunk his finger into the flesh of her right leg. He was right about her leg. She barely had any feeling in it. It had been completely paralyzed after the last attack, and was now back in the same horrid state. Except this time, instead of being torn to pieces, it had been crushed to the bone. Her leg might have been numb, but just the look of it was enough to horrify her. The way it was crumpled, all that blood. Any normal person would have died of shock. As if thinking about someone else, Alko considered how cruel magic crests could be.
あれ？まだ目が死んでない。
I don't really want to torture
苦し
you.
めたく
Oh
ない
wow.
んだけど。頑丈なのも考えものだよ。
He really
お姉
delayed
さん
that. The boy thrust his hand out at Alko's chest. Her consciousness flickered from the sudden pain of a stake. No, a child's fist piercing her torso. The scenery flew by. She soared through the air like a rag doll, tossed away by a bored child. Just like Alice a moment ago, she stumbled through the air and hit the ground hard. Her right leg was crushed, her chest caved in. It was as if her heart had been scooped out of her chest. Each gasp of breath left her waiting more. Was this what it was like to see stars? The terrifying part was the pain. It never let up. Desperately trying to suck in oxygen, she could still feel his fist. Leisurely, the boy strolled across the snow toward Alco's broken body. His red tongue glided over his lips. He stared at his prey, who was desperately trying to breathe. His eyes filled with glee. Alco bit down the temptation to drift away, even though she could not find reason to fight on. The snow had broken her fall slightly, but her death was all but certain. The fist-sized crater in her chest and her mangled leg made sure of that. Even though she knew she was a broken mess, her magic crest frantically worked to resuscitate her heart. But why? The sight of Toko in the distance was the only thing that kept her conscious. Is he here? Her sister looked surprised for some reason, like she was witnessing some strange phenomenon that wasn't like her. Is he here? Wondering what it was, Akko tried to stay conscious. Is he here or is something happening to her? Feebly trying to raise her head, she looked where Toko was staring. Why did she look like that when she was so close to victory? Is he here? Is our boy here? The resident isn't innocent man. The boy who accepted everything but had nothing. Yes. Sojiro. The man with no flaws. Which makes it his biggest. The one who was always there even when he wasn't wanted. The man who would save your life as you were trying to save his. This is the perfect human being. His heart was beating faster than normal. The fragmented and disturbing images kept returning, and he desperately pushed them back in his mind. There were thoughts that shook his resolve. He did his best to file them away into an unseen corner of his consciousness. The music, right now, he could only focus on controlling his breathing and his exertion. Just stay calm, he repeated to himself. He had not stopped for a second since leaving the church, even without giving a thought to what he could do next. So many traffic lights. So many people. It was Christmas. There was no way he would find a taxi. Waiting for one was not an option. It was why he had put trust in his legs. He dashed through the city streets. He had to find a shorter route than last night. His heart was ready to jump out his chest, pounding like a hammer against a fire bell. He had no intention of giving up yet, but he could not seem to calm himself down. In his precarious condition, even surrender seemed too great of an effort to spare. Visions of horrible outcomes flashed through his mind. No, calm. He needed to stay calm. That was his only weapon. He was painfully aware he was powerless. The best thing he could do was to keep his head on straight. While he wrangled with his mind, his pulse seemed to quicken with every step. The forest was faintly lit by moonlight. That was more than enough on such a bare mountain. He followed the two sets of footprints. Ahead lay a situation he had nothing to do with, just like at the amusement park. Even if you go, there's nothing you can do for them. Their only effect, her admonishing words had was to hasten his pace. He pushed the ground with his legs even harder, trying to leave his doubt in the kicked-up snow behind him. Of course he was powerless. The pain in his chest told him so. At best, he would be useless, and at worst, he'd be a liability. He recalled the binding spell placed on him at church. It did not matter. His body told him he would regret being torn to pieces, less than if he did nothing. Not once did his legs fail him as he ran through the woods, though it felt as though his heart could at any moment. His weakness screamed at him from within. Just like back at the amusement park, he was beyond reason or circumstances now. Ultimately, I just want to help her. That was all he really desired. His heart pounded with vigor as he ran through the dark, wintry forest. Only one thing gnawed at his mind. Not concern for the girls nor anger toward Toko. The red roses bursting forth from her limbs, screaming of agony like childbirth. Did you guys hear that? What a perfect time for someone's car to just start going off. The harsh reality of something beautiful dying. The nightmare was tenacious. Never again. Never, ever again did he want to see something like that, if he could help it. Just ahead was the forest clearing. The moonlight shone on the old school building like a spotlight. Once again, those thoughts crept back. He could not bear seeing something like that again. That was why he ran. But if he had to face it a second time, how could he stay calm? With that thought in mind, he arrived at the clearing. Somehow his frantic breathing, his rising and lowering shoulders stopped. No exhaustion, no inertia, just blankness, like his mind was frozen in time. This was the second time he felt like this. But the nausea and dizziness from the first time, the pathetic whining of the last few weeks, the doubts clouding his mind, they were all gone, displaced entirely from his mind by an even stronger emotion. His heart pounded with the force of a sledgehammer. It was a primal sound, loud enough to bring him to his senses. Sojiro stepped into the clearing, letting out a deep but steady exhale. Although his eyes were locked with the blonde-haired boys, his concentration was focused inward. Be calm, be calm. Every fiber of his being worked to control his breathing. The clearing told the story of Alko and Alice's crushing defeat. Alko was lying face up in the snow, her right leg bright red and crushed at the thigh. Her eyes were glazed over, but Sojiro could tell she was still bravely fighting. Judging by her spluttering, she had taken a hard blow to the chest or back. Sojiro deduced it was most likely both. Alice's injury seemed less serious than Alko's, but she lay motionless and on the ground nevertheless. She was lying across from Alko, face down in the snow, arms out in front, as though pushing herself up was too painful. Before the old school building stood a figure of a mage he had seen before. Paying her no mind, Sojiro began to walk forward. Sorry, tried to stretch and, it's so easy to press these damn back buttons. Feeling calmer since arriving at the clearing, he advanced toward Alko. Toko did nothing to stop him. No one noticed, but the faintest look of worry flickered in her eyes.
お兄さんもその人たちの仲間?
The child werewolf spoke amicably, confident in his victory, and perhaps also eyeing up a new meal. Sojiro ignored him and kept walking toward Alko. The complete disregard wiped the smile from the boy's face. Still, Sojiro carried on. The beast's feelings were lasting on his mind. Once he reached Alco, he looked down at her with a pained expression on his face. Strangely, he was at a loss for words. After a slight hesitation, all he could manage to say was,
なってないぞ、生徒会長。行く時ぐらい声をかけるものだろう。
His awkward remark was half scolding and half affectionate.
このバカ。
Despite the pain in her stomach, Akko was able to throw an insult his way.
安心した。余裕あるじゃないか、青崎。
His voice brightened, as if buying her bravado. The truth was that she barely had the strength to live. Despite that, Sojiro looked like he wanted to respond in his usual way. Something like, "See, Alko, you're too tough to die, even when someone kills you."
あんた。
As soon as she tried to speak, she ran out of breath. Sojiro heard her loud and clear this time. He might have looked absent-minded, but he knew exactly how dangerous the situation was. Alko knew because his carefree-sounding words did not match his expressionless face.
何のつもりで。
Before she could say doing, she coughed painfully. Sojiro pressed his fingers to his lips and nodded. Alko could not believe it, but it looked as though Sojiro had gestured her not to speak.
だってほら、状況はあの時と一緒だ。君がやられたら次はこっちの番なんだろう。だから協力をしに来たんじゃないか。まあ何もできないのもあの時と変わってはいないんだけど。
Akko didn't know what to say. She could only look at him, amazed and awed. The werewolf stared at them, visibly frustrated. After all, he believed himself to be the noblest of all creatures. Ignoring him was treason punishable by death. Had Toko not been there, he would have sunk his teeth into Sojiro's neck by now. He was sure he had been intimidated enough. However, his prey did not show any signs of fear. It was hard to imagine, but maybe, just maybe, this guy did not view him as a threat.
まあ誰でもいいんだけど、筋張った肉は歯ごたえがあっていいし、何より食い出がある。先にそのお兄さんから始めても構わないよね。
The boy wolf called out once again. Still not responding, Sojiro raised his hand to his nose. Cool, calm, and collected, paying no mind to the boy, yet keeping an eye on him.
匂うな。
ん？
Everyone present was confused. No one seemed to be able to smell anything but him.
へえ。何が匂うっていうのかな、お兄さん。
Bale's voice just retained his usual arrogance, but was tinged with impatience. The boy was unable to hide his irritation at being ignored. Finally, Sojiro turned to face the boy just a short distance from him.
品のない肉の匂いがする。これだから犬は嫌いなんだ。
His voice filled with disgust and contempt. Sojiro was mainly speaking to himself, but the wolf boy had never felt so insulted, even if that was not Sojiro's intent at all.
Huh.
In a moment, the wind picked up, perhaps signaling a change in the werewolf's mood. A fiery gale whipped around, carving patterns in the snow.
ソジロ。
Sensing he was about to be killed, Akko desperately tried to move, but her broken body would not respond. After hearing Sojiro's insult, Alice was unsuccessfully struggling to get to her feet too. In complete contrast, Sojiro stood there, firmly and unfazed. The little blonde boy's well of patience had run dry.
そうか。要するに、僕が子供だからって舐めてるんだね。お兄さんは。
What the hell? What? His time playing human was over. Enraged, the boy transformed. He grew larger and larger, golden fur sprouting from his pale flesh. He got his own thing too? His mouth grew razor-sharp fangs. His leg grew claws. His hands grew claws. I don't know where I saw legs. Drawing from the magical... I guess if you're a dog, you only have legs, right? I mean, not really, I guess. Whatever. Drawing the magical energy in the air, he transformed to a paternal... beast. A wolf in the shape of a human. Toko yelled at him, but the werewolf did not respond. He only huffed deep breaths of hot air. That was all Sojiro could say in response to the boy's metamorphosis. Such a transformation was the stuff of nightmares. What was worse, the beast now towered above him. It was enough to make anybody question reality itself. Amazing. Seeing his prey's reaction satisfied the werewolf, but his maw twisted into a satisfied grin. He was a strange one, this guy, but meat was meat. However, the beast's arrogance was short-lived. The prey breathed a sigh of exasperation before speaking. You can hear a pin drop even in the snow. Alco, Alice, and Toko were all dumbfounded. Were they really seeing a human not just stare down a werewolf, but insulted to its face? They simply could not believe it. It was too late. Any trace of the wolf's pride or dignity faded away. The onlookers finally realized that the wolf was serious. But Toko's command fell on deaf ears. The wolf prepared to lunge, his emerald eyes fixated on Sojiro, not 30 feet from him. A mere 30 feet. A half a second was all he needed. Another half to bring his claw down and simply slice his prey from head to toe. A roar of joyous, unbridled fury echoed far and wide. It was the only warning the werewolf gave as he exploded towards Sojiro. 1 second. A golden blur swept forth in a furious gust, too fast for eyes to follow. In the face of unworldly speed, there was only one thing to do. Sojiro stepped forward, a silent shadow opposite the beastly silhouette of the incoming werewolf. He needed exactly 3 paces. He bet his entire life on around 3 feet of distance. In the blink of an eye, death would be upon him. Yet he did not show the slightest indication he intended to avoid the lunging behemoth. The werewolf's forearm slammed to the ground with earth-shaking fury. His back muscles tensed up so much he seemed barely contained in his frame. As he swept, he raised his paw downward. Sojiro's small step neatly evaded the claws. But he had a different motive. He was merely positioning himself for the next move. His intention was never to avoid anything. From the beginning, his mind was focused on but one thing. Dang, this man got a six-pack? 1 point to aim for. 1 mind. 1 breath. He picked the perfect opening in the wolf's torso, the precise microsecond between contraction and relaxation. That 1 point alone was a crack in the dam of life. Oh, my boy, learn from Alco. Yeah! Give me your chest! Oh my god! He punched the wolf in his chest with his feeble human strength. Oh, he's in his werewolf state. Oh my god. Oh! 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 I did not need that. There was a dull thud and a burst of blood. The twisted flesh and gore were all Sojiro's own. Yeah. The werewolf raised claws convulsed. From the insignificant impact, the beast's body was the first to collapse, then his spirit. There was a moment of utter incomprehension. The wolf opened his jaws and tried to put air into its lungs. Gasping, he began to topple forward. The slender figure slipped around to its flank. The next blow pierced him like a spear. Ignoring his mangled left arm, the silhouette whirled around and drove his right elbow into the collapsing werewolf's back. What the hell? Look at his arm. My boy is on something else. There was another muffled impact. The second strike penetrated the exact same spot his first strike had, crushing the beast's heart. This time, the blood that flew into the air belonged to the gasping wolf. Context? How does he know? What is happening? Why is he a badass? The wolf fell to the ground, choking on his own blood. God damn. He could not get him. He dealt with him like it was nothing. Literally bursted his arm into his chest. God. He showed no sign of life. Dead. Oh, Sojiro, I told you he's the perfect person. It was over. There was no remorse, no hesitation in that brief act of violence. The perfect, furious golden beast lay still. Okay, in the mere 3 seconds. No sane person would have bet on this outcome. Who the hell is Sojiro, bro? Who the hell are you? Nah, cause the scars and everything. Who are you? His breathing calm. The victor stood over the fallen behemoth's body. Who are you? Bro, come on. Backstory time. Backstory time. But how? Even as the beast lay crumpled in the snow, he could not grasp what happened. His heart had ruptured, cutting the blood flow to his body and brain, leaving him helpless. That much he knew. If he were a normal creature, he would be dead. I've been waiting for the twist with Sojiro's character, bro. There has to be something crazy. As it was, this was a trifling inconvenience. Once his heart was repaired, his body would heal as well. It was not as if he had been struck by magecraft exceeding his own mystical nature. This was a little different than a grazed knee, which was what was so strange. Your heart doesn't stop from a grazed knee. The werewolf frantically searched his memory. He managed to remember right up until the moment he raised his claws. But what had he come after that? Given the right transformation, he knew he could withdraw even a cannon blast. Withstand with it even a cannon blast. How had a puny human dropped him? Wait. Before that, he had to figure out exactly what his opponent did to him. The moment he got in close, yes, he had felt a small impact. The attack was so accurate that it probably only affected his heart. Ridiculous. Even if that was possible, there was no way that that alone could stop a werewolf's heart. In the end, no matter how much he had thought about it, nothing added up. The answer was out of reach for a werewolf with no knowledge of being backed into a corner, let alone the limits of human skill. Only one thing was certain. He had lost. He tried to piece together the sequence of events. The explosion in his chest, a flash of white. After that, as he was falling over, he took another blow to his back. That one was the one that disrupted his heart. Could lose, indeed. It was physically impossible. The boy gnashed his teeth and tensed his body at this unfair conclusion.
同族でだって僕を任せる奴はいなかった。こんな痛みも こんな事態も全部嘘だ。不合理に狂っている。だってこの僕が他の生き物に負けるはずが。
Enough thinking. He was ready. From the ground, he glared at his opponent's side.
負けるはずが。
The very next moment, an unknown type of pain coursed down his spine. It had eyes, cold, staring, piercing. What is this? Colorless. The moon looked more alive. Its arms were broken. Its inhumanly powerful attack had mangled them beyond recognition. If it was in pain, it would have cried out, but it was silent. Was it ever alive? Stop, bro. Those dead eyes. He'd seen eyes like those before. Those eyes without hatred, without joy, without any feeling behind them at all. A boy from the mountains, bro. What's the twist? Just tell me. It was a mindless insect. The werewolf's hair stood on end. What was this creeping chill clawing up his spine? Having never experienced fear, the werewolf did not know what had become of him. Bro, what is the twist with this dude? Despite countless clashes against other mystics, it had been a human that broke him. He knew beasts even larger than he himself. He knew legendary creatures like himself. He did not know this. He never met, much less imagined, a human-sized bug. The chill down the werewolf's spine was so vicious it threatened to split him in two. If he moved even an inch, it would crush his skull underfoot. In spite of the despair gripping him, the boy paradoxically sensed that his opponent would not move at all. Oh my God. This human would exhibit no further violence. It was a creature, no, a stone that held no animal instincts. It masqueraded as a human. The contradiction grated against his heart, his values. A phantom pain, born of an unknown emotion. Fear. It wasn't just grating. It was like many needles slowly digging into his heart. This had been the first taste of doubt of reality. Such contradictions existed in the world after all. There were irrationalities and questions you did not want to hear the answers to. The suppressed pain suddenly flowed through his body like a raging river. This was also a first. Until now, he had always been able to control pain. He had never known what it was like to tremble. An elemental might even feel sorry for him, if it were to watch. How sad, born complete, yet lost in the lunacy of the human world. His heart had fully regenerated. Howling in mental agony, the beast clutched his own trembling body. Those eyes, those human eyes were looking straight through him. And then the boy realized the only reason he was still alive. Even with both arms broken, the human could not finish off with his legs. Could have finished him off with his legs. But it mattered not, because his opponent was giving him a taste of his own medicine. This was not revenge for trying to kill him. This was revenge for the wounds inflicted on the two girls. The absurdity of it all made his throat tighten. His breathing was frantic. This human had no sense of self. It had no concern for its own safety when it stood between him and the girls. That must be why it had no hate or fear, or perhaps even intent to kill him. Indeed, the fact that he was alive had nothing to do with the human's will. The fight was like a machine. The fight was machine-like, so was its judgment. An eye for an eye, nothing more. If the werewolf had killed one of the girls, this exchange would have ended entirely differently. He shuddered at the thought. He had never entertained such a possibility. He had never had to. because he was supposed to be the one exception to that rule. Agony kicked him hard in the gut. No matter the mystic, nothing was immune from injury, from decay. The boy finally understood an obvious law of the world. Or rather, he had been taught. Those eyes, they would not stop staring him down. Retribution was the universal law. He was now painfully aware of that fact, and yet, the one who brought form to this idea was this human. The pain of defeat, the pain in his heart, the pain of comprehending the incomprehensible. Almost had it, god damn! The pain. The impossibility of it all had shattered his perfect world. It ate at him, consuming every fiber of his being. The doubt made his head spin. It was too much. Humans were impossible to understand. He had not been made to face with death from another but its own. Unable to cope, he reverted to his human form quietly. He shivered like a frightened child in a mother's lap. Still lying in the snow, Alko choked on. Remember what he said in the beginning, that when fighting him, you can't protect yourself. You got to go all out. That was her mistake. She held back. He didn't. This dude's arm literally blew up as he punched him, unable to entirely comprehend what had unfolded.
Sojiro, anta.
She could not hide the trembling in her voice. Speaking in his usual way, Sojiro nonchalantly turned toward her. She shouted angrily, as though he had done something wrong. Sojiro looked surprised, wondering what on earth he had done to upset her. He lowered his gaze back to the wolf. Knitting his brow in dismay, Sojiro finally realized what Alko was referring to. He looked at her in disappointment. What are you about to say, bro? What are you about to say? Tell me something. Get me excited. Hold on. Feeling slightly affronted, Alko responded curtly. Sojiro sighed. Bruh, stop playing. Stop. No. Can we just end the series? This dude did not just say bears are pretty common in them. Come on, bruh. I know bears are way stronger than human beings, but like, really? That? I don't know. That's a reach. Huh? Alko's jaw dropped. It took her a moment to process what he had just said. She recalled some meaningless conversation, or others from who knows when. Yes, now that she thought about it, they had spoken about that. He mentioned being familiar with large beasts. And she couldn't deny that she had heard him utter some anarchist nonsense about training to deal with them. Misclick. Which meant he was used to dealing with animals larger than himself. If he'd lived the sort of life that involved run-ins with wild bears, then the man wolf might only have been surprising, but not particularly frightening. Alko hung her head. After all this time, who was it that really made no sense? It was hard to tell whether she spoke in admiration or exasperation. Either way, as she slouched in the snow, Alko spoke quietly enough so only she could hear her words. Toko, on the other hand, understood exactly what had transpired. Beowulf lay fallen, now just a sobbing boy, and another boy stood over him with two shattered arms. Near fatally wounded, Alco and Alice still could not stand, but had recovered enough to breathe. As for Toko, she had only a few tricks up her sleeve, maybe 3 or 4 more wounds at best. The magic crests on her back were unusable. She could use them, the remaining magical energy from the field imprisoning from her grandfather, but that would be stupid. If she released her grandfather, she would lose ownership of the sacred ground. Failing to defeat Alco and Alice now would mean starting over from square one, and she could not afford that. This sibling rivalry had to end. Toko had gambled everything on her surprise attack, using the fact that she was still an Awazaki to infiltrate Misaki's defenses. For 3 years she had labored, selling her work to the association. She had used 20 years worth of her hair to immobilize an army of familiars. It was now or never.
だが私は失敗した。
She had overestimated the wolf's power. Werewolf, my bad. It should have been enough. Against mages alone, Beowulf by himself would have been enough to ensure complete victory. But things did not always go according to plan. Beowulf's incredible strength was conditional. She knew he was not inflammable, so why hadn't she prepared a contingency plan? Her heart as cold as ice, Toko stared at Sojiro, who stood tall. His arms were a hideous mess. The arm used to strike Beowulf's head on, barely even resembled an arm. His bones were bent out of shape and his muscles torn to shreds. To say his arm was simply broken would be a gross understatement. Okay, my question is, can a human being really punch that hard enough to break their own arm? I mean, like, yeah, break it, but like make it burst like that? Like, are you really strong enough to do that? I mean, with adrenaline pumping and like the full on like 100% power, I can see it. Like if I tried to punch a safe, like a bank safe or some shit, like something that's really hard to break. Like that's probably a terrible example. Like, of course, if I try to punch that, I don't, like with my full force, your arm would just blow up like that. I don't know, man. I don't know why I'm asking questions. She's literally using magic right now. Streams of crimson ran down his other arm, onto the white snow. The elbow he drove into Bale's back was likely shattered, and his muscle and tendons torn up to his shoulder. Judging from the state of his arms, it was doubtful that he would be able to use them again. Worse than his arms were his left leg, with no doubt his internal organs too. He had used his legs to take the full brunt of Bale's charge. At a glance, it looked fine, but it was now just a useless hunk of meat attached to his torso. His insides were worse. Supporting the weight of Bale had ruptured his spine, causing widespread internal bleeding. Basically, he was a dead man standing. Luckily, a bird chirped. That got me so hard. I read that as a bird chirped, and I was like, the blue bird at it again. That's crazy. That makes no sense. No, a bird with clipped wings. Living like that would not be living at all. He could barely stand, let alone fight again. In contrast, the collapsed werewolf was unscathed. Only once he had coughed up blood. The majority of the pool of red snow was Sojiro's, a crimson tapestry telling the story of a boy who stood strong and defeated a werewolf.
当然だ。衝撃には反動が伴う。拳を振るうのなら相応の負担がある。まして相手は人狼。走ってくる鉄の壁を真っ向から殴るようなものだ。
See, like, if I was punching a moving freight train, though, like, would that actually blow my arm? Yeah, most likely, actually.
それは。
Perhaps he had known that would happen. Animals instinctively limit their strength in order to protect their body. Compensating for physical weakness with intellect and technique was humanity's forte, and that clash had shown humans at their very best. And yet, it had also been beyond human. He had attacked without concern for his own safety. Without self-preservation in mind, he could go beyond human capability, enough to strike through still-like fur of a legendary werewolf. But who would have thought that a beast able to withstand a shot from a tank would be felled by a mere human?
いや、違う。ためらうことなく殴りつけたから壊れたのではない。初めからあれは壊すことを前提にしていたな。
He sacrificed his entire body to destroy Beowulf's heart. Toko felt a chill come over her as she went over in her head what had transpired. It should have been a nightmarish scene, but she was captivated by the supreme display of physical rationality. From the outside looking in, she had witnessed not an accident, but a rational consequence. In that instant, the boy had put his entire being into piercing Beowulf's chest. As soon as he laid eyes on Akko and Alice, he had committed himself fully to the task. He sized Beowulf up, synchronizing his breath, his breathing, found his weak point and calculated the exact position, timing, and distance he would need to hold his ground. He knew what he had to do to win, and did it with everything he had. It had nothing to do with instinct. A wild creature would not have tried to beat something he could not. Only a human can risk his life when facing the impossibilities. That contradiction was his attack. Fed his attack. He twisted his body from his heel to his neck to focus his energy. If Beowulf had simply tried to run Sojiro down, their werewolf probably would have won. But the beast wanted to rip him to shreds. Or rather, he was baited into doing so. After Beowulf charged, when he planted his feet, he raised his claw and swung it downward, putting himself off balance. His pulse was erratic, his movement wild, and in that moment he was vulnerable. That was when Sojiro made his move. The beast had overwhelmingly power, but it was sloppy, whereas the human concentrated all of his meager power into a single point. That was how the human shifted the balance in his favor. The follow-up elbow attack would rapture Beowulf's heart. It was a graceless second strike, a sloppy blow, no different from Beowulf's. The elbow was able to penetrate the beast's golden fur because the first attack to his chest.
あの時点でベオは丸裸にされていた。無敵の人狼がその機能の一切を休止させられた。つまり
The strike was not meant to break but to disable. All living creatures had weaknesses. No matter how strong the creature, it had weak points and weak moments, not just physically but mentally too. A time when they aren't in their best shape, unable to focus or find motivation. Sickness or a lack of sleep or food, for example, can cause the body's rhythm to go out of sync. For a variety of reasons, intelligent beings risk losing their ability to function properly. Legendary beasts were no exception.
弱点、欠点をつく魔術なら知っているが、すべてを投げ打って弱点を生むとはな。
The boy's strike to the heart was not an attempt to kill Beowulf. It was designed to create a weakness in something that had none. The elbow attack took advantage of that break in Beowulf's invulnerability.
加えて、笑えることに不意打ちですらない。ベオの神経の伝達速度なら、毒が当たった瞬間に感知し対応できる。だが、そもそもそれを毒と認識できなければ、偏見、毒ではないものが毒になるなんて落とし穴を誰が教えてやれるものか。
She was frustrated to say the least. The boy, totally committed, utterly selfless. He bet his life on a single moment, without expecting a single thing in return. The boy had acquired the experience and skill to do such a thing. It was not a miracle of luck, nor a miracle of passion. It was not talent, tenacity, or hatred. Without consistent, intense training, no one could destroy their body, on a whim like that.
子供には相手が悪かったようね。
Seeing Bale cowering in the snow, Toko was disappointed in her own lack of foresight. She had used him for this talent alone, ignoring his inexperience. If Bale was not a child, his life experience might have given him the strength to bounce back and devour Sojiro after regenerating.
ベオを責めるべきか、それとも君を評価すべきなのか。
Toko quietly lifted her hand, her left one. Nobody noticed. Standing far away, the boy standing there looked like a hunter from a picture book. He had a slender build, but that was likely because he intentionally shed any excess. Given what she just witnessed, his cluelessness had to be a part of an act of a hunter. As she thought to herself, she suddenly remembered. The first thing that crossed her mind was the first time they
そうだ
spoke.
ったな。だが、それは忘れていたかったよ、宗十郎君。
No sooner had she felt a slither of sentiment, she returned to her unshakable resolve. She was raised as the heir of the Awazaki household, taught never to question the morality of her actions. That was why, even now, she knew exactly what she had to do. Rip Sojiro. I already know what's gonna happen.
よかった。
If she kills Sojiro, can I be 100% honest with you guys? I feel like that's like one of the deaths that I would accept the most in fiction history. Like, Sojiro literally just completed life. Like, he literally just finished all the side quests, New Game Plus, bro. He's done. He literally just did the thing. He overcame the highest wall ever. Like, literally. Like, that is the hardest thing to ever beat, and he just did it. Sojiro muttered, unmoving, perhaps because of the pain in his broken whatever. He did not look at Alko. Instead, his gaze was focused on Alice, who was lying prone some way away. Alko thought he looked
よか
lonely.
ったって何がよ。
She asked, spurring him on. They were mere steps from each other, close enough to touch hands. Their quiet voices carried in the
私
stillness.
たちが無事だったからなんて言ったら怒るわよ。
She was not joking. Sojiro turned away from her, slightly shaking his head.
口にするのは3度目だけど、青崎の心配はしていないんだ。いや、さっきはちょっと意識が飛んだようなんだけど。
He said, as an embarrassed smile crossed his face. For the first time, he outright fainted, but the second time, his passion pushed the dizziness and nausea aside. He just calmly did what he could, as he best could. Nevertheless, no matter how calm he tried to be, deep within festered a very real rage.
じゃあ何が良かったのよ、宗十郎。
Ako's voice had slight tinge of annoyance. Sojiro responded.
ようやく約束が守れた。そっちだけが約束を守ってるのに、こっちは果たせなかっただろう。それがずっと気になっていたんだ。その機会があって、本当によかった。
His relief expressed itself as a small but heartfelt smile. Ako listened, astonished. For a moment, she could not recall what promise Sojiro was talking about. When she remembered what he was talking about, what she had told him all that time ago at the amusement park, her mind went
あい
blank.
つをやっつけるのに協力したら、俺のことは見逃してくれる？
He proposed the deal, but in the end, he hadn't been of any use. It must have been eating away at him this entire time. Ako had considered the agreement binding, but only for herself.
あんなどうでもいいことを。
She muttered in disbelief. Sojiro gave a nod and affirmed with a tiny
約
voice.
束は自分のために果たすものだって教えてくれたのは青崎だ。
Don't worry about me. I'm just, pulling out my phone. Oh shoot, my bad. No reason, no particular reason. Just for fun, Yeah, that's a screenshot. That's all I'm gonna say.
だから君が守っている限り俺も守らないといけない。はあ、ずっと俺はそうしたかったんだ。
After listening to a confessional, Akko stayed silent. She could not find the words to say anyway. Sojiro approved ever the enigma, taking such trivial promise so seriously, speaking so sincerely about something so basic. She could not wrap her head around how he had beaten a werewolf, but his personality, that was the true mystery. It was no use trying to figure that out now. To Alko Aozaki, he was a riddle wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a conundrum.
それじゃあ借りは返したから帳尻はゼロだ。これで貸し借りはなしだぞ、青崎。
Sojiro said lightly, perhaps attempting to break the silence. Normally, this would have passed her by, but she saw his kindness for what it was.
貸しがついたのはこっちの方よ。これじゃあどうやって返していいかわからないじゃない。
Sojiro nodded in a happy agreement. Oh, with the snow. Oh, that is fire. Oh my god. Yo, Sojiro is the main character. Let's stop playing. Can't believe this. She shot him a stubborn look as to say, well, duh, obviously. Yeah. Yo, glee. Absolute glee. Ever amazed by her grit, he offered her his right hand. Despite being broken at the elbow, to Alko, it looked as sturdy as ever. By all appearances, it was beyond recovery and would be for the rest of his life. Even so, he seemed to ignore the pain for Alko's sake.
あんたってバカ。
She uttered under her breath, looking up at him. As much as she hated to admit it, she could not refuse his hand. Resigning herself, she reached out to Sojiro. I take back what I said. I'm so privileged. I take back what I said. Please don't do this shit right now. I'm sorry. I'm not taking Sojiro for granted. Please don't do this right now. No, a small bell chimed. I hate the fact that I have to read it too. A line of wind whipped through the air. It cut through his waist like a guillotine. Fuck. Oh my fucking god. Oh. Pieces began to fall. What were those things dropping before Alko's eyes? Alko could not remember who they belonged to.
Sojiro?
Saw that shit coming from 50 miles away, but it still fucking hurts. That used to be his name, right? The name of whoever lay in the red snow in front of her. The fact that I have to read it. Like, at least with anime or like movies, this shit just keeps moving. Why do I... His face now rested on the ground beneath her chin. I can't look at this shit. I can't. I saw it coming from... I knew, like, just to kill the suspense that something was gonna happen. I knew it. Fucking knew it. I knew it. The smell of viscera assaulted her nostrils. A river of blood flowed from what used to be her stomach. It happened so fast. Too fast for her mind to process, in fact. Her only solace was he probably did not suffer. How could she think of that so calmly, especially after what she had just witnessed? Her blood boiled at her own stupidity, which begged the question, how should she treat the one who did this? She had used all her anger on herself. She had none left to give anyone else. But this hatred was hers and hers alone. Her problem was this: could she muster the emotions from this drought of anger? She was not sure, but the thought of hunting them down made her smile unconsciously in anticipation. Ako turned to the old school building where Toko was standing with her arm out in front of her. She had used the same rune magecraft she had used against Ako, and Alice, except Sojiro, had no magic crest. Toko's amber's eyes were narrowed, staring intensely at the fallen corpse. As to what she might have been feeling, Ako could not care less. Even if Toko felt regret, Ako would never forgive her for as long as she drew breath.
やはり君からこうしておくべきだったな。
Toko was not speaking to Ako, but to the dead body. There was no response, no clouds of breath. Coming to terms with that he was truly dead, Ako pushed herself to her feet.
案外無様ね。
Facing her sister in the distance, Ako spoke
でも正
hoarsely.
しい選択だわ。これで勝負はやり直しだもの。
She turned away from Sojiro and stared at Ako. They stood far apart, further apart than their positions made them seem. Though there was nothing left to say, the two of them exchanged words in respect to the fact that they were once sisters.
魔術刻印という私の切り札はこの通りで、人狼というカードもお前の切り札の前に敗れ去った。だが、そちらも刻印を使い切り、彼も今息絶えた。互いに決定打はなくなったわけだ。
そうね。私も甘かった。人狼が再起不能になった時点で、あなたが敗北を認めたなんて勝手に思い上がるんだから。本来ならそうなるんだけど、あなたがそんなに諦めがいいのなら、この本当に甘かった。
It was clear to Toko that Ako was trying to suppress her emotions. Ako was right, though. Her sister had counted on Beowulf to succeed. As mages, no matter what cards Ako or Alice had in their hands, they were helpless against a werewolf. But then Sojiro had shown up, and Toko couldn't win as long as he was around. Unfortunately, though he had stopped the werewolf, he had been defenseless against the mage. So she had to kill him. With Sojiro out of the way, no one could hold Beowulf back. It would take time for him to recover, but as long as his wounds were only mental, that could be overcome. Alice and Ako could try to attack again before he recovered, but Alice was being kept in check by the poison, so Toko still had the advantage. Stalemate, still. The battle would drag on, unless Ako were to use it. Yeah, that was your last mistake. That... You don't kill the perfect person. Powdery snow began to whirl around. The air around her wailed. It was magecraft that transcended all that was mystical. The gate to miracles beyond human comprehension ready to show itself.
やる気のようね、青子。
Toko released her crests, maintaining the fields. With that, her grandfather would be freed and the barriers around Misaki would be restored. Which was not what Toko wanted, but it was that or forfeit her life. The crests at her disposal were now twice as powerful as her sisters. Ako gazed at the new threat with her eyes half closed. None of this was of her concern. Far removed from the situation, she was searching for something hidden deeper inside herself, desperate to reach it. There it was, an odd feeling, like picking up algae. It was not the fire of emotion. It was not solid nor great. It must have been what people meant, by rising to the occasion. Abandoning thought itself, Alko held on to that feeling as she stared at her enemy.
いいわよトウコ
She spoke softly yet loudly, more loudly than a
お
scream.
望み通り本当の魔法を見せてあげる
Focusing her power into the dim crest on her right arm, she weaved the words together. What? A single incantation. A final, heartfelt farewell. A brilliant blue-colored magic taking time back to when a certain someone had been more blessed. Huh? Wait. To put it simply, magecraft is human wisdom, is the world as we know it. Magic is a singularity that exists beyond either of those. At the beginning, the first changed all. Next, the second recognized many. In answer, the third showed the future. Tethered, the fourth concealed itself, and the final fifth had long lost its significance. Someone once said, had it only ended at the third. Magecraft is the study of history, feats of our making and long orbiting the planet. But true magic is the providence of a god beyond the heavens. Why do those who stand on earth extol the virtues of miracles beyond humankind and the planet? This was the undeniable sin. Magic was the enemy of humanity. That is why those who obtain a new magic are killed by the red shadow.
聞け万物の霊長
Alko's voice resonated through the high and above the winter skies. The air began to fracture, turning the scenery into broken glass. Toko wondered whether she should fight or flee. She decided to try and keep her feelings in check as she stood to see this through. But the object of her obsession for so many years was right in front of her, rationally was slipping through her grasp. Both of the fates were now uncertain. Toko had an overwhelming feeling when it came to her crest and the terrain. When it came to true magic, however, if the Aozaki magic was anything like Alice Kunji's fairy tale monsters, then mage strength was not a part of the equation. At this point, it was Toko against magic itself, and there was no winning against truth. The transcendence of true magic rendered things like magecraft irrelevant.
だが
Toko stared at her sister, wondering if she could actually use it. Her proclamation lacked conviction. She had raised her voice, but that was only out of discipline. It had not been the arrogant conviction to sacrifice someone else for her own gain. Having not been chosen to inherit it, Toko could not imagine what the magic in her sister was. Only that it was a force violent enough to change the world. No human mind could withstand the audacity required to make an enemy of the world itself. Especially not someone as indecisive as her sister. The power of magic would surely cripple her. Feeling Toko's eyes on her, Alko doubted herself. She could not help but hesitate. Terror gripped her heart tighter. So, I gotta say this really fast. Back when we were at the amusement park and we saw the red shadow, that was because she was pushing herself so far that she started tapping into magic. It was set up or a foreshadowing to this, that she could use magic. That's what that was. I was so confused by that moment. But literally that's what that was. That was the red shadow looming over her as she was pushing herself too far to the point that she started using magic. That's tough. Terror gripped her heart tighter. Sorry. No, go back. You're not doing that. Come on.
でもだからって
She could not run away forever. Her hesitation and terror meant she would never forgive herself from stopping them. Closing her eyes, she pressed herself into the final stage. Time stopping like a light switching off. She submerged herself into her own darkness. Everything froze, only she moved. Everything around her disappeared as she passed the limitless stream of stars. And as soon as she did, she wanted to disappear into the empty thoughtlessness place she arrived in without any answers. Not again. The red shadow will surely come this time. Suddenly, I saw a new memory. Possibly because I used another to make the trade for. I heard a familiar yet new sound. I wish for nothing. I seek nothing. Only to fuse with the consciousness that hurtles backward in time to zero. This sound, the bitter, sad, meaningless pulls me by my hair. But I have to resist. The red ghost was always going to be my biggest hurdle. I must forget the value of life. I must forget the dignity of death. The sound persists. It's got nothing to do with this journey. It's just an external distraction. And yet, I think I finally understand. I know what the noise has been making me so uneasy. Wow, let me do that again, sorry. I know what noise has been making me so uneasy. There you go, English, there we go. What the unsettling whispers were directed at me. Or perhaps the red shadow was perplexed. Or the quiet soul listening to it. It glares at me, its eyes full of hatred. How could I be so unprepared? Don't tell me. You can't be serious. You're going to turn me into your prey for that? That is your everything. You have nothing else. The effect of rewinding the decision to never say never. His prime, his meaningless life. She negated it. She used her superior power to negate the sound, which was an absolute rule to him. Just brushed it aside like it was cobweb. The sound disappeared and a new one replaced it. I wish for nothing. I want nothing. A pure, obedient heart. That's why you get nothing. A life of falsehood, led by affirmation. This is ridiculous. My legs moved towards the future, but they stopped. Change of plans. I'm taking a different path. Nothing's changed. It's just something has made me real mad. How can I put it? You call this the past, you idiot? If you don't complain about something to someone, they'll explode. Even if it's just to the voice, or to he who hears it, or to the part of me who just stays quiet and watches, or to the one who did that to him. With no answer, I open my eyes. Yo! The music? Oh! Oh my God. I'm sorry. I declare. Anka released everything she had dragged. Can I turn this up a bit? Please, no echo. Oh my God. As for what was there, or what she saw, she could not remember. All she held on to was the fury that burned in her heart. Pushed on by something she did not know when she opened the door to magic. Let's go, Aozaki! The change was extraordinary. Beneath her, the snow vanished, replaced by a small patch of lush green grass. What? This ground had never existed on the frozen blanket. It had been rewritten into the new landscape. Oh, Toko, you better start running! The very elements rejected her, as if the world itself was fighting back. The electrical discharge lashed out of her body. This miracle threatened to destroy the world. The world had protected itself. It moved to expunge her. That's so... Yo! Pain scorched her every cell, trying to tear away her consciousness. But she did not falter. All this pain and this loneliness was to take her to the root. Ever since inheriting true magic, she had suffered this torture time and time again. She contended against the voiceless protest of the cosmos. The burden engulfed her retinas and nerves her flames. And then light. She finally understood. She remembers why she came back and what she wanted to scream. Oh, I'm listening. What voice told her to stop? At the edges of oblivion, her hand touched the true form of magic. The snarling red shadow was there, telling her it was no use. So much doubt, so much fear, and such things meant nothing to her. To me. I don't care about magicians' obligations or the destruction of mankind. I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. I only have one reason for doing anything right now. God, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. Don't! I just want to save him! Yes, sir! Go all out! Let's go! A blue whirlwind whisked up around her, casting aside her doubt and sorrow. The magician played a trick upon the world. Oh my God, you're she just changed the seasons, bruh. What the hell? Time flowed backwards. Oh my, yo. This woman's crazy. She's actually insane. Childhood memories were overwritten. She's actually insane. Don't tell me she just did what I think she just did. White flowers appeared as far as the eye can see. Brighter than snow, they rippled like a wave across the world, devouring you. Yo! What in the world? That's my girl! Aoko Awazaki. 5 timeless words. Order has fallen to ruin. Oh my God, that's my girl! We're here, the magician! What was declared to have come, or to be. In this time and place alone, the 5th magician made itself known. That's Tom! Did she actually go back in time? Bro, what? True magic. True magic. In the blink of an eye, the snowy clearing had transformed. A sea of fully bloomed white flowers blanketed the ground. Only the dilapidated school building and the bare winter trees signified this was the original world. The once cold wind now blew with a pleasant warmth across the landscape. Even the night sky was once again teeming with stars. If one reached out, one could almost touch them. It was a mix of comfort and solitude, quiet enough to carry the sound of instincts flying through the air. A scene far removed from the impurity and grief of humans. A world with nothing, yet one that needed nothing. It was his most precious memory. The winter tundra had changed into a spring meadow. Ako's so-called true magic confused Toko. Sure, it was pleasing to the eye, but she wanted to see something idyllic. Ako's spell was clearly no small feat, but the surrounding mana had not changed. Better to be confused though than deal with something like Alice Kanoji's flat snark. The only changes seemed to be the flower field and Ako's appearance. She seemed to have received an enhancement to her physical form, but it would never be enough to match Toko. Toko said with a hint of annoyance.
まさかそれで終わりではないだろ。
Akko began walking through the sea of flowers, but she was not heading toward Toko.
いえ、これでおしまいよ。私も、あなたも。
Akko's words sent a wave of unease through Toko. Her sister's voice seemed different somehow. It was mostly the same pitch, so it had to be the tone. So that was the same too. Something was off. Could it be? It was then Toko noticed something else that had changed. Not just Akko in the clearing. The severed body lying at Akko's feet, it was now whole. Yes, sir! Corpse reanimation, wound healing, my bad. It did not look like Akko had used a significant formula. And besides, draining your body did not bring back its life. Since the dawn of time, even true magic has never been able to bring back the dead. But the body of the boy behind Akko was moving, it was breathing, and it was like taking a nap. Sorry, I messed that up.
蘇生が青崎の魔法。いや違う。あれは蘇生というより。
The girl time traveled, bruh. I don't know what to tell you. Before she could think of an answer, Toko realized what had seemed out of place to her before. Akko's mannerisms appeared beyond her years. Appearance had changed ever so slightly, but beyond that, there had been a change from within. By the time Toko arrived at a seemingly impossible conclusion, Akko had closed the distance between them. Akko raised her left hand to eye level. Aw, you better start praying. You better stop hoping it's a god. Toko could see hear the magical energy generating inside Akko. It was sound Toko had never heard before. Akko only possessed a single function, low-grade circuits, no better than any third-rate mage. So she generated magical energy at a much lower rate than Toko. However, this speed was absurdly quick, moving even faster than blood pumping through her body. Magecraft could vibrate. But now, or how in the hell were the activated magic circuits audible? Even the association had never heard of such a thing.
我が目前に勝利ありき。
Spurred to action by the sudden dread she felt, Toko hurriedly carved runes in the air. Toko summoned the divine protection to victory. I don't know how to say that. I don't know. To surround herself with a barrier, which was further enhanced by her crest. Oh, you're done. Oh, you're done. Look at the red hair. Paying it no mind, Akko held her arm steady, not moving it up to strike her target directly. Akko commanded herself suckingly. This was beyond magecraft. In just a few words, she had fired 20 magical bullets. Like a meteor shower, the bullets smashed through the rocket-proof rune barrier, as well as Toko's spell-woven crook. I just noticed something about Melty Blood in her super, but I'll talk about that later. The protective runes lining her coat screamed. They would not be able to take another barrage like that. She had already taken internal injuries. She loathed to admit it, but Akko was vastly outclassed Toko in terms of raw power. Even harder to admit was that her sister probably had not even brought out the big guns yet. Just started. Jumping backward, Toko drew more rune symbols in the air. In response, her crest brightly burned. But with a single word, Akko nullified the runes, dissolving them before they even could be given meaning. The power of Akko's words had surpassed the magical energy of Toko's rune magecraft. With the runes nullified, Akko continued advancing through the white flowers. From her calmness to the robust spinning of her magic circuits and her breathing, she was different. A woman with sublime self-control, a trait only found in mages with a lifetime of combat experience. Given the evidence, that was the only explanation for Ako's magic. Ako's magic circuits had not been amplified. That would have been impossible anyway. Like Toko, she would have had to externalize them, which would just increase the scope of her magical energy and techniques. By nature, the quality of a mage's magic circuits did not change, but Ako's was now clearly a superior mage to Toko. So there was one logical conclusion. In an instant, she had grown from an amateur to a veteran. She fast-forwarded her own time. Jeez, her hair is so red. Look at the collar. Oh my gosh, she looks cool. She looks so sweet. The scarred red mage turned her back to her sister and ran. She knew she could not win, so she fled toward the old school building. Ako did not fire, not out of pity, but because she deduced that an attack at this range was risky. She went to chase after her sister, but stopped suddenly. A few words caught in her throat. She took a small breath.
アリス、そいつお願い。
She looks so cool. Yo! She said, slightly embarrassed by the maturity of her voice. White petals through the air. Without looking back, she made after Toko, with long hair flowing behind her. His eyelids snapped open. At last, Sojiro awoke from his long slumber. Lying on his back, he gazed up at the stars. The trees around him created a porthole into space. Despite seeing all this for the first time, he felt an uncomfortable sense of deja vu. So many questions. What happened before he fell asleep? Why had he been sleeping? Everything was just so hazy. It was like he walked out of the door one minute and woken up in bed the next. With so many thoughts clouding his mind, he could barely recall his own name. All he could remember was a girl he'd never seen before, and something thin around his neck.
しずきくん
The voice, quiet but clear, belonged to a girl named Alice Kunji, who was by his side.
そういえばそうだった。
He sat up, mumbling incoherently. The black-clad girl knelt next to him.
花だ。
He said, paying no mind to Alice. Under the blue moonlight, spring flowers swayed, surrounded by dead trees and snow. Against the curtain of night, white petals danced in a breeze like butterflies. Staring long and hard at the spectacle, Sojiro suddenly raised his fingers to his neck. He moved carefully, like he was touching a wound. Then gradually he began squeezing harder and harder.
しずきくん
The voice of the girl beside him brought him back
せ
to
っかく
reality.
戻れたのにまた行くの
If this is the final chapter, they went off on the art. She sounded both sad and reproachful, but Sojiro did not understand why. Seeing the uncharacteristic concern in her eyes snapped into his senses.
行くってどこに？
His fingers fell away from his neck. Without answering, she blankly looked at the sky. Though there was only one infinite darkness of space.
まあいいや。それより俺は何をしてたんだろう。なんか変だ。ごちゃごちゃしてる。
Sojiro tilted his head in confusion. Alice observed his motionlessness. Wait, what? His motionlessly? Observed him motionlessly. This bewildered the boy. This bewildered boy was a far cry from the one that made short work of a werewolf. And again, this was Sojiro. She stared at him, or as she stared at him, she realized she did not have the answer he could understand. So she tried asking him a question, the same question she had asked him repeatedly as he slept, but eventually gave up expecting a response to.
今までしずきくんは何をしていたの？
Her quiet question was spoken like an enthralling spell of magecraft. Said spell seemed to work, and Sojiro sank into a sea of memories. Atop the bright white hill, they quietly sat for a while, like siblings.
誰かの声が聞こえた気がする。何かを聞いているようだった。けど、自分は最後まで一言も返せなかった。
Though consumed by the darkness of death, he could still vaguely recall the girl's question. He was not aware that he had died, but it seemed a fragment of time remained from when he had been with her. Sojiro's expression darkened, filled with regret. Looking at his profile, Alice pressed him even
そ
further.
れで欲しいものは見つかった？
Remembering that someone had asked him questions, he gave a slight nod.
ああ、そうだった。けれどね、アリス。そんなものは見つからないって思っていたんだ。うん。ずっとそう思っていた。
The regret in his voice was accompanied by a hint of strength. Lowering his gaze, Sojiro saw a white flower garden that looked like something from the afterlife. It shone brightly, captivating him.
思い出した。青子の前でざっくり言ったんだっけ。なのに生きているのはどういうことなんだろう。
Sojiro said, prodding his body curiously. His arms were their old selves again, but what of Alka? He turning toward Alice for an answer, who was set among the flowers, looking sullen.
巻き戻されたのよ、しずきくんは。この風景も本来はあなたの記憶だけど、わからない。
Alice seemed to be speaking in riddles.
俺の記憶って、その割には知らないところなんだけど。
今しずきくんの時間は青子に使われているから、それが戻されるまで思い出すことはないわ。
She answered ominously, as she cast her gaze over the flower garden.
でもこれが消えてしまうのは残念ね。元に戻れば思い返せるのは私だけなのに。
Looking at the white blossom, she smiled momentarily. Her words only confused him further.
アリス、君答える気がないんだろう。
He said dejectedly, prompting Alice to face him. What emotions lay inside those deep eyes?
意味のない話だけど聞きたい？
聞きたい。アリスが教えてくれるならなおさらだ。
Sojiro nodded enthusiastically, while Alice took a deep breath and closed her eyes. When she spoke in as caring as a tone as she was capable of.
結論だけ言うと、あなたは一度死んで生き返ったの。しずきくんが瞳子さんに殺されてから、青子が目を覚ますまでの5分間分の時間を巻き戻して、その時あなたは10年近い年月を青子に使われた。2人とも肉体年齢は変わってないから、中の時間だけ持っていったんでしょうね。だから今この景色を懐かしく思えるのは青子だけ。
What?
そして
Once the time exchange was over, neither Alko nor Sojiro remembered what happened during these moments. When Alko used someone else's, someone else to channel her true magic. It did not affect her alone. If she had around time for only herself, then temporal inconsistencies would form part of her own experience. However, this was proper time. English. The inconsistencies would be corrected. When the magic ended, both Ako's memory of this place and Sojiro's unfamiliarity with it would be corrected. This miracle would become unrealized. Only the observers would remember this brilliant white sea of flowers, Alice and Toko.
時間を持っていく
Sojiro asked, his head tilting even farther at Alice's general explanation. She recalled how Alko said that if you gave Sojiro a roundabout answer, he would stop asking questions, even if he didn't comprehend
しず
it.
きくんを生き返らせる方法はなかったから、命の復元より死そのものの回避を青子は試みたのよ。まだ青子には無理なのか、それとも今回もひよったのか。大きな操作は避けて小さな操作、自分とあなただけの交換にとどめたよね。あなたは今5分間だけ時間を飛んだことになるわ。仮に遠い未来、この時間を検索できる人がいたとしても、あなただけは誰にも見つけられない。だって時間軸の上にいなかったんですもの。そして同時に青子は自分の時間を上乗せするためにあなたから時間を借り受けた。多分幼年期の時間でしょうね。個人の時間操作は忘却している部分の方が楽だと聞くし。
Should I slow down? Alice asked with her eyes. All Sojiro could do was nod.
つまり2つの奇跡を青子は行使したの。あなたの体の巻き戻しと自分の体の早送りね。しずきくんの時間に介入する際、ついでに10年分の時間を借り受けて未来の自分を持ってきた。だから今瞳子さんを殺そうとしているのは27歳分の時間を持った青崎青子ということになるわ。
What on earth was Alice talking about? Sojiro's expressions gave away his thoughts, though the part about Toko made him furrow his brow.
瞳子さんを殺すって青子が
もう終わってるでしょうけど。
As soon as Alice answered, Sojiro sped off, kicking up white petals behind him as he ran. The brave boy who defeated the werewolf was back. Alice watched him go. On a snowy night, the same boy ran down Shirinizuka Hill for her too. Sojiro entered the old school building. Lights flashed and the sounds of destruction exploded around him, threatening to turn the area into a burial ground. Still, he remained focused.
悪いけれど、やっぱり無駄だったわ、青子。
Her words only reached the white flowers around her. Alko knew Sojiro too well, so she wanted Alice to stop him. If he tried to interfere with the battle against Toko, she could not protect him this time. But it was too late to celebrate Alko's judgment now. The girl in black had no intention of going after him. She simply sat for a while, gazing at the transcendent flower guardian. The music! Oh yeah, you're not touching her. That's the crazy part. A storm of magic bullets struck down a hail of lightning. Hey! Okay? Okay, I see you. Alright, a mage's workshop was their home base and last line of defense. It featured an abundance of defensive spells designed to cut down brazen challengers and thieves. The old school building was no exception, painstakingly rigged by the puppet master and rune mage Toko Aozaki. A reflection of her bizarre obsessions, the workshop was set to indiscriminately destroy any intruders. She's untouchable. Yeah, she a freak of nature, freak athlete. Toko complained as she ran down the hallway, activating her traps along the way, but nothing seemed to work. Oni! None of the runes, regardless of their quality or quantity, could slow her sister down. Her reaction speed and ability to predict attacks could only be described as transcendent. Even magic bullets she fired from both her arms were too much, destroying the runes in the very walls that housed them. As she spat out her words, the ceiling opened, increasing the pressure from the runes. Invisible walls popped up in the hallway. Alko stopped. Oh my god. Alko stopped and swung her right leg upward. Oh my god. Rest in peace. Don't even, no, rest in hell, actually, my fault. Straight toward the ceiling. God dang. Her foot cut through the thick air like a knife through butter, shattering the ceiling and the runes along with it. The wooden boards along the hallway that had withstood decades of wind and snow were now destroyed. Akko charged forward. The chaos was inevitable. All Toko's runes cursed living creatures. Akko's magic bullets destroyed all without prejudice. Toko would do anything to change her blood, but there were more pressing matters at hand. The girl rushing at her now was not the sister she remembered, but rather a more complete version of her. Toko couldn't afford to let her guard down for a second. But localized time travel. Toko didn't believe that was the true nature of Aozaki's magic. Alko transformation had been a mere byproduct of true magic. She couldn't make heads or tails out of the depths, even with Alko having achieved it. At the very least, it was not a simple miracle. After all, the concept of time travel was already made possible through the second magic. Record manipulation, revisions of possibilities, and so forth involved an operation of parallel worlds. So there was no way that could be the fifth magic. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on.
貴様、その10年分の時間をどこから持ってきた？あのボンクラからよ、悪い。後で返すんだから、あんたに非難される覚えはありませんけど。
That made sense. There was a bias, but the amount of time on the axis had not been changed. But
では、あの5分間はどうする？まさか私を始末した後、彼を元の状態に戻すのか
？Akko stopped in her tracks. Tokai took aim at Alko's glaring oversight. Aozaki's magic and Alko's humanity were inconsistent.
そうだ。時間操作では死者の蘇生は許されない。お前がしたことは一時だけの気休めか。
The magic crest on Toko's back began to demonstrate their true worth. Drawing upon the magical energy stored in the crest, she materialized her largest trap yet in the hallway. Three rune stones appeared. Their scale and level of magical energy were wildly different from the other runes, created by Toko herself in the Mages Association. They were replicas of one of the lost primordial runes created by Nordic giant. Why did I get mad? The three thin crystalline lenses amplified her carved runes tens of millions of times. They rendered projectiles like magic bullets ineffective. Even if Alko's magical output far exceeded Toko's, these giant slabs were several times more powerful still. Alko's signature magecraft could only release magical energy, so she had no way to defend or evade the attack. Pushing herself on, Alko took a deep breath of resolve. Instead of defending or dodging, she went with low and charged into the rune storm. What the? She ran into it. Is that what I just heard? Oh, I thought she was flash stepping. This girl's not even here. Infuriated by the realization, Toko set her magic crest to full power. Though repeated, second-long bursts of time interval, Alko was able to avoid the runes completely. She was either sending the attack's impact to a different time, or layering several thousands of herself on top of one another. Whatever, no way she could keep up that kind of magical energy output. Alko kicked down the crystal slab to pieces. She remained distant 30 feet. Toko had 10 seconds of magical energy left, but that was all she needed. Alko, on the other hand, would stop now if she had any common sense as a mage. She couldn't continue breaking the rules for any much longer. Then again, time travel itself was breaking the rules. Once again, Alko used the same technique. Toko's suspicion turned into white-hot hatred. She couldn't care less about her time formula. It was the amount of magical energy she had. Where she was pulling the energy necessary to jump through time for... Where was she pulling the energy necessary to jump through time for so long? It was the death of Sojiro Suzuki. If she had brought him back 5 minutes to when he was alive, where would those 5 minutes go? Alko's magic wasn't using parallel worlds to change this one. She had only rewound Sojiro's 5 minutes. Then logically, he'd return to being a corpse as soon as the magic ended. Time travel didn't change the world, couldn't change the past. Time travel that didn't change the world couldn't change the past. Therefore, if she wanted to save him, she had to entirely either truly resurrect him or send those 5 minutes of reality somewhere far away without returning them. Alko showed no signs of slowing down. From behind her crystal barrier, Toko glared at Alko with disdain. "15 feet to go. Faced with such madness, Toko wanted to cover her eyes. She put the debt of her present in the distant future. A time paradox would have been more humane. Such an enormous hazardous consumption of heat could not be allowed. Ooh. After all, time travel alone required a massive amount of energy. Magical energy was required to bring things from somewhere else. At the same time, losing something that exists here consumed an incredible amount of energy. And what about the magical energy used for cooling? If either fell out of equilibrium, it would mean total chaos. The distortion caused by her magic would come to affect this entire sector of space.
ここに極まったな。何千億年後に来る宇宙の死滅、人類の行く末に待つデッドエンドにさらなる負債を押し付ける気か。この星の頭上に隕石を作っているようなものだぞ。というか、お前の重みでこの星を押しつぶす気か。
The last comment made Alco's eyes widen. Her every step exerted such force it broke the floorboards beneath her feet.
その時はその時で、今度は負債を過去に送ってやるわよ。それなら文句ないんでしょ。歪みに潰されるのは過去だけなんだから。
それで解決したつもりか。現在が確定している以上、過去を消滅させてもいいと。それでいいのは私たちだけだ。問題の総量、宇宙の負債はどうする？
Exactly. Even if the universe were closed, so the present were still expanding, the absurd increase in heat consumption would become uncontrollable. That which waits at the end of infinite expansion, infinite consumption, and infinite growth is a future without hope. The nothingness before creation. Eventually the universe would burn up.
青崎の魔法はその結末をより確かなものにするだけだ。その責任をお前は。
言われなくても分かってる。責任なんて私が生きてる間に何とかするわよ。
5 feet to go. The rune blast, now carrying all of Toko's hatred, focused into a scorched heat laser beam. Her body being torn into by the intense heat, and her emotions raging, Alco drove her foot into the ground.
責任を取ると言ったな。では、その具体案は？
そんなのこれから考えるに決まってるでしょ。
お前は最悪だ。
Toko's last defense was shattered. Close enough to connect, the two mages unleashed their magecraft. Red runes, blue ether. In a cascade of magical bullets, Toko Aozaki's crest were torn to pieces, and so was Toko herself. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The fifth magician. It was just as Alice said. By the time Sojiro arrived, it was already over. The old school building's wooden boards had survived the elements for decades, but they were not ready for a mage duel. The entrance door hung off its hinges. The floorboards groaned. The stairs were ready to collapse underfoot. Toko's escape and Alco's pursuit had left a trail of destruction leading all the way to the second floor. The chaos continued to the end of the hallway by the stairs to the third floor. Toko sat in a heap with her back against the wall. Despite her injuries, she kept her eyes firmly on Alco. She was bleeding internally and had multiple broken bones. Jeez. Oh. She would not be moving for any time soon. Jeez, laid out. Oh my god. Possibly damaged by Alco's flying kick, her mystic eye had raptured from within, closing them indefinitely. Despite her battered and broken body, she was still breathing steadily, a testament to her stubbornness. Before her stood Alco, staring down at her, uninjured.
屋上までは持つと思っていたんだが。
Toko was not trying to be facetious. She sounded genuinely disappointed. Alka responded with a cold glare. Her azure eyes had not changed one bit. They were callous as ever, yet undeniably beautiful. From where she stood, Alka held her hand out toward Toko. Like a hunter about to put away or a wounded prey out of its misery. The victor was decided. The mage came to steal land and got a death sentence for her trouble. The silence was moonlight peered through the demolished ceiling, illuminating the two sisters with its stare. The utterly mad sibling squabble was over. Now the fireworks were finished, and the cold wind had returned to the calm, old-school building.
何か言い残すことはある？
Alko's voice cut through the silence. Toko thought for a moment, before lightly patting her coat pocket. Nothing, she frowned.
最後に一服と思ったが、あいにくお前を待っている間に吸い切ってしまってね。日本のタバコはうますぎていけない。
Alko gave a small
な
nod.
かなか常人には真似できない遺言だったわ。
待て待て。いくら私でも遺言まで謎かけをする気はないよ。
Toko's voice was laden with sarcasm, but not hostility or hatred. Perhaps her vendetta was not directed at Alko herself, but rather a product of two sisters born into a mage family.
青崎の魔法が時間旅行に端を発するものとは思わなかった。まだ事情がありそうだが、当事者ではない私には何ともね。ボンプにはわからない悩みだ。せいぜい大事に付き合っていけばいいさ。しかし10年経ってもそれでは先が思いやられる。アリスは何をしていたんだか。
アリスにしてはよく付き合ってくれた方よ。魔術師としてはいつまでも半人前っていうのが彼女の結論。けどまあそうね。あの狼とならいい勝負をしたんじゃない？
あれはダメだ。敗北を知ってしまった。もう完全じゃない。半人前に値で勝っていようが、魔法の前には得意性を見失うだろう。ところで、青子、お前の魔法とやらは手段か、それとも結果か。
Toko wanted to know if it came before or it came after. Did Alko need magic to get where she needed to go? Or did she obtain magic as a result of reaching that
あとよ。
place?
私は扉の前で尻尾を巻いたからジジイの思惑なんて知らないけど。
第一魔法と同じ経緯か。ますます業が深い。第2から第4はその場所へ到達するために生み出されたものと聞く。同族嫌悪は世の常だ。いずれ第一と食い合わなければいいのだがね。しかし扉ときたか。魔法の継承とはパスの継承のようだな。ではやはりここにユミルの入り口があると。
北欧かぶれのあなたにとってはね。私にとっては赤社の門と言えるものよ。最初からそれを狙っていたんでしょ、あなたは。
Toko used every ounce of her strength. She could not find you now.
望めば
Or she
手
could
に
find
入
you
ると
now.
いうのに何代も待つのは嫌だったんだ。ソフトはそれで決別したようなものだったよ。
Did y'all hear that crack or was that just me?
青崎に対する復讐心はそれには優先されなかった。まあ全ては終わったことだ。もう最後に 言に触れた感想が聞きたいな。
Toko spoke after taking a deep breath. Her last words showed no trace of hatred. Alko remained silent as she began raising her right hand up high. She recalled her grandfather's orders, the source of true magic. Revealing one's knowledge or impressions of the root was strictly forbidden. But this was her sister's dying wish. Maybe it would be okay. The conversation would end the moment she brought her arm down. Then this rotting shell of her building would become her sibling's tomb. What harm could it do? And it's not like she planned to follow her grandfather's rules anyway.
白状するとね、姉さん。
Alko's voice carried through the blue hallway.
正直、全然わからなかったわ。
Alko gave a blunt reply and brought her arm down like a bolt of lightning. Or at least she tried to. Suzuki, go home, bruh. Go back to the mansion, brother. You done your job. You're good. Her arm wouldn't listen to her. It wouldn't
何
budge.
のつもり？
Good question. Cursing Alice, Alko spat her question out with venom. Sojiro materialized from behind, taking a hold of her raised arm. Though unable to express it, Toko was shocked to see him too.
で、話して。
Without looking at him or even at her restrained hand, Alko spoke sternly, her eyes forward. Come to think of it, at the amusement park, he appeared out of nowhere to protect her from that puppet.
聞こえなかった。二度はないわよ。
She was not bluffing. If he interfered, he would be given no mercy. You gonna say it or am I don't know with these quotes, man. I've decided to let you live. It would go against that promise, but he should know better. Even so, he maintained his grip on her
いい
arm.
加減に。
As Alko turned around, the word told caught her in her throat. She immediately regretted looking at him. She saw herself in his expression. Mournful sadness, judgmental anger. His conflicting emotions spoke to her of her own internal struggle. Voiceless, quietly, without volition. Rustic gray eyes, questioning a deep sin.
言いたいことがあるならはっきり口にしなさい。それができないなら消えて。
Sojiro gently released Alko's arm as she maintained her resolve. They locked eyes, neither friend nor foe. Their bitterness clashed without words. And then suddenly,
人殺しはいけないことだ。
it's self-defense. Let me stop. Sojiro stated in a matter-of-fact way of his witch with Alko, of which Alko had become all too familiar. His words were empty, trite even. And yet, given her current state, they reached her. Although she would soon forget the fragments of Sojiro's memories, they made her painfully aware of how he felt. Still, she could not agree with him. It would come back to bite her if she let Toko go now. Her sister would come for her again. She had already made 2 attempts on her life. Alko did not have it in her to forgive her sister for what she had done. Above all, just as Toko said, if Alko did not change, she would be a novice forever. She had not even won her first mage battle yet, and she knew putting down a blood relative would require even more conviction. Nevertheless, his words echoed over and over in her heart. Murder is wrong. Such a childish phrase. But the earnestness of which he had said it, it was enough to make her sick. Resisting, Alko glowered at Sojiro.
だから殺されたくせにその相手までかばうっていうのあんたは。元気になったら懲りずにやってくる殺人鬼が相手でも 見逃してやれっていうの？
Give me a second. I gotta delete another video just in case. You know, I want to make sure that this 3-hour video. Thank you guys for staying. If you have, hope you guys been enjoying the series as always. Honestly, it's up there as one of my favorites. I always said this, but I didn't think it was gonna go this crazy, man. You know, I this is my first like visual novel, like deep visual novel. So the fact that it's this crazy, putting this many hours, man, I'm glad to make it a series, and I'm glad that the people have been enjoying it, have been, you know, sticking around.
まさかそこまで言ったら聖者だ。自分にはそこまでのことは言えない。
But he would probably still let her go. He did not think that Toko would change. He also did not care to rationalize her actions based on her life. He was simply thankful that this person before him was still alive. You seem pretty damn saintly to me. That was what had made Alko so angry. His overwhelming innocence and self-righteousness enraged her. Like the Hall of Mirrors was happening all over again. The only difference was now she knew why he was acting like this. It was because she had taken a part of him. He took a step forward, passing her, saying words he knew he should not.
仕返しなら殺された人間がやるのが筋だろう。君を止められないのは分かってる。だから青崎がやるぐらいなら俺がやる。
It was difficult to discern who was the more pathetic in all of this. Okay, that's what I said. Toko, who had been staring at them the whole time, closed her other eye as if drifting off
ご
to
めんなさい、
sleep.
トコさん。
Knowing her fate, Toko dropped her head as best as she could as he walked toward her.
そうだな。君にはそれもいいかもしれない。今は特殊な状況だから、冷めた後に君がどれほど悔やむことになるか想像もできない。ただ、それで君の停滞は終わるだろう。晴れてみそぎ落としというわけだ。純粋に祝福してあげられる。
Just taking another photo for the the ending credits because that is a fire quote. That's all I'm gonna say. Bada boom, bada bing.
気に食わないのは、それを決意させたのが私ではなかったということぐらいか。
She knew that Sojiro could not understand, her words hanging in the air. She closed her lips tightly, then weakly stuck out her slender neck. So Sojiro took another step forward. Before he could do anything, Alko moved. Spinning in front of Sojiro, she cut off her magical energy and swung her hand as hard as she could. The sound of her slapping his face echoed through the hall, along with his staggering steps.
青崎。
卑怯者。
Tears of anger welling in her eyes, Alko turned her back to Sojiro, sulking, as though she would kill him as soon as she looked at him
他
again.
人の記憶を取り込んだ代償か。引きずられたな、青子。
そうよ。自分の意志を人に曲げられるのがこんなに悔しいなんて知らなかった。
That was about all Alko could mutter in response. The concerns of Toko's lips curled in a grin.
何がおかしいのよ、あなた。
いや、お前にも人並みの情けがあるとは思っていなくてね。バカ呼ばわりは訂正しておくよ。他人の理想を背負うのに怯えるなんて、10年経っても可愛いじゃないか。
あんたね。
そう睨むな。今のは心からの賛辞だ。で、私をどうする？彼に殺させるか、それとも見逃すか？
仕方ないでしょ。あなたの言う通り、これが何よりの代償だったんだから。
Akko said begrudgingly, shooting Sojiro a sideways glance. He seemed to have recovered from the slap, and his usual absent-minded look returned. He may have had no memories of his past, but his morals and values were too deep to be erased. Sojiro was trying to violate those. It would eat away at him forever. And he would be doing it not for himself, but for Akko. Akko understood this all too well. The moment he said he would do it was the moment he lost. Not stopping him would be no different than watching him die. And she would lose something important inside her. Akko didn't want that to happen.
やっぱりその自分の受けた傷は自分で返さないと気が済まない性格か
Akko ignored Sojiro, who seemed to have gotten the wrong idea. Instead, she directed her scowl at Toko, who still lay collapsed in front of her.
わかったわよ。トウコ、今回は見逃してあげる。けど、ただで帰れるとは思ってないわよね。
Toko scowled at her little sister standing smugly over her.
祖父のところに突き出すのなら、ここで引導を渡してくれ。
まさか、私もあの人には会いたくないもの。あなたにはこのまま出て行ってもらうわ。邪魔もしないし、教会に届けも出さない。律子は私が言い含めておくから、今回の件は私たちだけの秘密よ。
Toko's brows creased further. There had to be a catch.
青子、何を企んでいる？
別に。その代わりに呪いをプレゼントしようと思って。今まで散々ガンド食らってきたし、おあいこでしょ？まあ、私のはちょっと強力だけど、今後この土地に入ろうものならマダガスカルガエルになってもらうわ。
Smiling as if they had just arranged to eat Chinese food tomorrow night, Akko walked towards Toko.
待て、なんでそういうものだけ習得してるんだ、お前は。
そりゃ師匠がアリスだもの。偏るのは当然でしょ？
The elder Aozaki's sister brow knitted so hard it could have produced a sweater. Perhaps this is why her sister would stay a novice forever.
宗十郎、席外して。覗き見が趣味なら別に見ていってもいいけど。
As she spoke, she began removing her sister's overcoat. The uncomfortable look in Toko's eyes, compared to the strangely cheerful one in Akko's, caused Sojiro to hesitate. Was it really okay to leave the two of them alone? Eventually, he nodded. This is just some weird game between sisters.
覗き見は確かにいい趣味じゃないな
Muttering more to himself than anything, he ducked into an empty classroom.
なんだそのブサイクで悪趣味な術式は。センスがないにも程がある。お前本当に私の妹か？
ええ、この通り芸術的才能は全部姉貴に持っていかれた哀れな妹でして、嘆くなら自分の天才性を嘆きなさいと。
Down the cold, dilapidated hallway, cries of sadness, joy, and anger rang out. Outside, the fully bloomed white flower petals floated one by one into the night. Standing among the ballad of petals, Alice gazed up at the sky. The blossom gathered in a cloud and slowly vanished as though falling asleep. Soon, not a single flower would remain, and the clearing would return to a snowy tundra. The magic had ended, and in a matter of minutes, the past would return to its rightful place. Along with it, the time shared between the boy and the girl. The old school building was still. Alice embraced the silence and patiently waited. After a while, Sojiro emerged from the building. Alice released a puff of white breath. A small sigh of relief. it was over. Sojiro approached, carrying Aoko, cradling her in his arms. Why, was she asleep? Her eyes were closed, and she seemed peaceful. Her hair and limp body dangled like a silk drape. She looked just like Sleeping Beauty.
待っていてくれたんだ、アリス。
He said, holding Aoko with little effort. Alice
瞳
nodded.
子さんはどうなったの？
いや、よくわからないけど、瞳子さんは帰ったよ。青崎が言うには、そう簡単に解除できない呪いをかけたから、向こう10年は三崎市には入ってこれないって。その後、瞳子さんが尻尾を巻くのを仁王立ちで見届けて、見えなくなったらそのまま倒れたんだ。
Alice's response was brief, as if she was wondering if things were really that simple. She seemed more concerned with Toko than Aoko, which made Sojiro concerned about Alice and Aoko's relationship more than anything.
それはともかくとして、青子はどうなっているんだろう。
He asked nonchalantly, as he looked at Aoko breathing deeply in her sleep.
矛盾と清純を合わせているのね。彼女の時間は今の時間とは異なってしまったから、歯車を合わせるまで目は覚めないわ。
Sojiro nodded in understanding, very clearly, still not comprehending a word Alice had just said. She's gonna be asleep for 10 years? Is that what I just heard?
なんか拍子抜けしたよ。結局、瞳子さんと青崎、どっちが勝ったのかよくつかめない。
そうね。魔術師の争いには明確な点数はつけられないから。どちら、瞳子さんの大目的が青崎の魔法の解明なら、魔法を使わされた時点で青子の負けよ。その後のいざこざは凱旋する勝者を夜道で襲ったようなものだし。
Alice said as she turned her sights to the forest. Even Sojiro could tell that Alice's way of saying, let's go home.
そうだね。青崎もアリスもこのままじゃ風邪をひく。ああ、それと青崎が瞳子さんに呪いをかけるとき何かしてたんだけど。
Sojiro trailed off, hoping Alice would tell him what it was. But a stony and somewhat affected gaze was her response.
見たの？しずきくん。
いや、青崎が出てけって。
そう。それで青子はどんな呪いをかけたの？
カエルがどうとか。
Sojiro's explanation made Alice's expression darken. Aoko was still a long way from learning any sort of polymorph spells. Oh, she dead.
そ
Her thoughts prevented her from finishing the sentence. In actuality, it was perfectly within Ako's abilities, considering where she was in the time. Yeah, it makes sense. At that moment, as Ako had said, Toko would not be able to dispel the curse for 10 years. And the Alice of that time had not the ability to use such a curse of this time, which meant Toko did not have anyone to rebound the curse to. No matter how much she researched dispelling powerful curses, she could not do it with the Aoko of this timeline.
青子が瞳子さんにつけたのは切り傷ぐらいだから、しずきくんが心配するようなことはないわ。青子にしては随分と生ぬるい処置だけど。
After her slightly unsettling remark, Alice quietly began to walk. Sojiro followed her, Aoko in arms. Together, they left the clearing and moved into the forest. As they did, Sojiro abruptly froze.
しずきくん、
He looked back toward the school buildings, filled with a strange expression. Was it homesickness he felt? Though this was the only second time seeing it, he had a nostalgic feeling, like he would never be back. He looked like a child saying goodbye to an old toy that was about to be thrown away. Seeing his expression, Alice felt a hint of sympathy and did something for him.
あの荒れ地がど
Or
うかした
herself, I guess. She asked him, watching the flowery garden fade into a snowy field. Sojiro shook his
な
head.
んとなく知っている場所に似てる気がして。おかしいな。やってきた時はそんな気はしなかったのに。
He stood staring at the tundra for what seemed like an eternity, reluctant to leave. If she left him there, he would still be gazing at it by morning, probably even longer. There was no point in doing that. In the end, Alice was the only one who remembered the beautiful scenery he yearned for.
ここはその場所にそんなに似てる
全然似てない。面影すら皆無だ。
ならそれは気の迷いよ
Sojiro nodded at Alice's harsh conclusion. Sometimes I'm reading and I read ahead of what I'm reading. So, or I do that. That's how I read, whatever, right? And then the words just get mixed together. It's like they just become one. It's like I'm trying to speedrun running. Speedrun running, by the way. Speedrun reading. He smiled slightly, deciding it was pointless to want something that did not exist.
そうだね。多分幻を見ていたんだ。あれは一度幸福だった時の夢だった。
Severing the ties that bound him, Sojiro turned his back away from the snowy clearing, away from the unfamiliar yet familiar place where he had known happiness.
さあ、早く帰ろう。青崎は重いし、体も疲れてる。洋館に着いたらあったかいお茶を入れよう、アリス。
Sojiro spoke her name with a smile. Her heart skipped a beat. Since when did he start saying her name so casually like that? Somehow she managed to nod before beginning to walk again. As he moved away from her, she asked a small question to his back.
私より
Aqua was a bit taller than Alice, so naturally she would weigh more, but Alice wanted to hear him say it anyway. Not one to disappoint, Sojiro answered without missing a beat.
ああ、数値的に言うのなら、アリスより10キロ増しぐらい。
そう青子が聞いてたら大変ね
Judging by Alice's tone, she was probably going to tell Aqua
口
later.
が悪いな、アリスも。それに、さっきのは本人の名誉のために死者誤入してたんだぞ、一応。
His attempts at being kind had likely drawn him closer to his deathbed. He asked nervously. Alice could not help but crack a smile at his innocence. However, she was not used to smiling in front of others, so she turned away and walked into the woods. From Sojiro's perspective, she was storming off in a mood.
なんだ。友達の悪口で怒るなんて、やっぱり仲はいいんじゃないか、青崎。
Sojiro rushed to catch up to Alice, gently carrying Aoko along the way. The prince lacked the courage to kiss the sleeping princess. He had at least saved her and was bringing her back to her castle. Despite what he had been through, he did not look like your typical hero. Still, in this story at least, he most certainly was. I think we can all agree to that. No shot. What? Y'all thought this was going to be the last episode? Y'all thought Witch on the Holy Night was over, even though I definitely titled this the end of Witch on the Holy Night? Nah, we got one more. A Tale of the Star. Ooh, I like how this looks. I like the aesthetic. That font is different than everything else we've seen so far, right? Man, we're 3 hours in. Next week will be the end. I doubt that this will be longer than this chapter. This one was 3 hours, 10 minutes. What's on the Holy Night 1 and 2? Yeah, I think that the next chapter, Tale of the Star, should be it. If not, I'm not against it personally. If you guys keep coming, you know, we keep enjoying this Witch on the Holy Night. So I'm not personally against it. But As I said in the beginning, I don't have headphones, so I really, really hope this 3-hour episode had no echoing because I'm listening to the music through my TV, and of course my mic could pick up on that TV. I was also using new software. I was using the Elgato Wave 3 noise cancellation or noise suppression that they recently added in one of their new updates. No sponsorship, but I would gladly be sponsored by Elgato. And I have an email. My email's up there, whatever. But, But yeah, I hope that it all worked out. It's my first time ever using that, so I hope it sounds good. I hope it didn't ruin anything. And honestly, it's quite scary for how long this was and how impactful this episode was on me and the emotions it was able to get out of me. And I really hope everything went well. And we'll see in post. That's all for me to worry about. And I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was really, really, really good. It's just the past few chapters have been amazing. I kind of want to check for the sound mode. How many do we have left? Okay, so we got first star. That's new. Definitely new. How many do we... Okay, we have a lot of songs still missing. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that insane? 1, 2, okay. 3, 4, 5, 6. If I can count. 7, 8. Oh my god. We're still missing a whole lot. Same thing with like CG mode, right? Okay, maybe I lied about this one. Okay, yeah, most of it's filled. Going back to the memories. The memories, oh my god. The flat snark was crazy. Okay, yeah, it's almost filled. Okay, I lied. All right. Oh, wow, look at this, though. Okay, yeah. There might be a lot more chapters than I suspect. Jeez, yeah, we might be missing out on a whole lot. What if after you beat the game, you get the original game? That'd be crazy, because I've been wanting to look into the original Wish on Holy Night. But 3 hours, 18 minutes. I will hold you guys no longer. Thank you guys for staying. I don't know. Usually people are like, if you came to the end, you should comment this. I got to think of something impactful. If you made it to the end, comment the perfect person and the fifth magician. Screw it. One of those two. The fifth magician, the perfect person. It doesn't matter. But Alco is the GOAT. I'll see you guys in the next one. Youth versus Channel. Remember, there's no such thing as hard. Just how long you're willing to fight.
Ha 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 ha.